According to the data detected by the mysterious guest, the strength of the combined elements will far exceed the previous individual form. When it appears in London, it will inevitably cause a terrible disaster. Nick Fury looked dignified. After seeing the destructive power brought by the individual elemental crowd before, he now fully believes in the existence of the elemental crowd. Moreover, the data detected by mysterious guest and S.H.I.E.L.D.'s equipment are too real to be faked. You came to me so that I could help you again? After listening to Wanda, she already knew the purpose of the other parties coming to find her. The initiator of the former Avengers project, after 5 years, the appeal is not as good as before, and now the only one who can find him is himself besides little Spider-Man. Well, this time it might really be the end of the world. Now that the war with Thanos is only a few months away, people can't afford to hit it twice, and Tony and Steve. Nick Fury was afraid that she would disagree, so he spit out a lot of words in one breath. Stop talking. I agree to go to London together. Seeing that he was about to move out his dead friend again, Wanda hurriedly interrupted. But even if Nick Fury doesn't say so, the witch will go to London to prevent disaster from happening. After all, she still wants to live on this planet with the people she cares about. I thank you for the people of London. You are much more reliable than Peter Parker. I have not been able to contact him until now. See you downstairs in an hour. Nick Fury glanced at the time, opened the door and just stepped out, then remembered something, looked back at Li Zi and said, Wanda, this kid can't go. The end of the world is never short of cannon fodder. Don't worry, I'm not ready to be cannon fodder. Li Zi looked indifferent. He knew that the elements in a combined form were just a good show prepared by the mysterious guest. Delusion to play the role of the savior in front of the world and become a superhero. He has more important things to do and has no time to worry about them. It's okay, he will obey me obediently and stay in the hotel. Wanda raised her head and kissed Li Zi lightly, promising. Mary fuck, all witches in the world are in love now. Nick Fury took a big mouthful of dog food and slammed the door shut. Hearing the sound of footsteps fading away outside the door, the two people in the room also returned to the bedroom. The news of the elemental crowd's comeback and the fact that they were going to participate in the mission later made Wanda feel less sleepy. She sat down on the side of the bed and looked at Li Zi, who was playing with her mobile phone with her head down. The man's handsome face with sharp edges and perfect lines made people unable to take their eyes off it. Different from typical Oriental people, Li Zi's face has a three-dimensional sense of Europe and America, and his eyes have the softness of Oriental people. He doesn't belong to the type that makes people intoxicated and fascinated at a glance, but the type that becomes more and more handsome as he looks at it, making people unable to move their eyes away. Li Zi noticed that the witch was staring at him all the time, and the corners of his mouth could not help but draw a curve. He put down his phone to meet her gaze. Witch, aren't you a little too brazen? You can look at me. Why don't you allow me to look at you? At worst, you just look back. Wanda met his eyes, her cheeks flushed slightly. At this time, she remembered something. Mamo looked at Li Zi with doubts and asked, aren't you angry that I keep running around? You are not doing bad things. Why am I angry? Li Zi asked back. Because of our pleasant trip, we have been participating in various Avengers missions, and I will go to London again later. Wanda looked down. With me, you may not be able to live an ordinary life like other ordinary people. She knew her own strength in her heart, and she was destined to miss out on ordinary life, from childhood to adulthood, even though she told Nick Fury several times that she would never come to her again. But when a disaster happened, the kindness in her heart made her unable to sit idly by and abandon her original mission. Wanda, real life is living a life that makes sense to you, and I feel right now that being with you makes sense. Li Zi held her hand and comforted her. So, no matter what happens in the future, I won't be bored. Real? Wanda's clear and beautiful eyes stared at him. Well, there is an old saying in China, those who lie to their true love will be struck by lightning. Li Zi nodded with certainty. Don't make such a poisonous oath. Wanda's heart was warm, and she held his hand happily. Before going to London, I'll have an afternoon tea with you. Li Zi looked at the witch with a smile on her face, and the corners of her mouth couldn't help but draw a curve, letting herself be dragged away. There is an open-air restaurant downstairs in the hotel, under several big trees that are lush in all seasons. Li Zi and Wanda sat on the chairs. The afternoon breeze was blowing, and the autumn weather in northern Europe was not very cold. The breeze blowing on the face always makes people feel indescribably comfortable. Osmanthus cake, a specialty of Huasha Guangnan. Li Zi took the waiter's plate, picked up one and handed it to the witch. Osmanthus cake. Wanda looked at the snow-white pastry, decorated with a few flower petals, and smelled the scent of sweet-scented osmanthus. She was surprised. Is it made of sweet-scented osmanthus? This is the first time I have seen pastries made of flowers. Well, add some petals and try. Li Zi just finished speaking. Wanda, who was sitting across from him, opened his mouth and ate it in one gulp, accidentally licking his fingertips with his tongue. Ahem. Li Zi felt the lubricated and pink tongue slid across his fingertips and subconsciously swallowed. Sorry, I accidentally licked. Wanda's pretty face flushed, and she felt an electric shock when her tongue touched it just now. But he quickly realized that he actually touched Li Zi's finger. It's too shameful, he wouldn't think he was seducing him, would he? But when she noticed Li Zi's expression, she was stunned for a moment. She didn't know if it was an illusion. Why did she feel that this man didn't seem to dislike him at all, but rather liked him? It's fine if you like legs and feet, but how can someone like tongues? Witch. What does your look mean? Li Zi saw the shock and shyness in those eyes that were as clear as a lake of clear water, and realized that the witch wanted to pervert him again. It was pure surprise just now that his witch's tongue was so smooth. He swore he couldn't think of anything else. Aha. Wanda nodded desperately, but she had a face that you continued to make up. Anyway, I wouldn't believe it. Li Zi. Wanda, what a coincidence. Why are you here? At this time, a woman's voice interrupted the two of them. Li Zi's expression was slightly gloomy when he heard the sound. Without even looking, he knew it must be the old witch Agatha. Agnes? Wanda on the opposite side said in surprise. My relatives live in an apartment building nearby. I didn't expect you to live here too. With a kind smile on her face, Agatha sat next to the two of them and warmly invited, would you like to have dinner together tonight? No, I'm going to London later. Wanda shook her head. Are you two going to London? Agatha frowned slightly upon hearing this. Are the two traveling, or traveling the world? Just arrived. Now going to London again. No, just Wanda to do something, I'll wait for her here. Li Zi explained. I see. Agatha secretly breathed a sigh of relief, but at the same time she was overjoyed. The evil in her eyes was hard to conceal when she lowered her head. She finally waited until the two separated. She had always been afraid of Li Zi and Wanda before, because they stayed together, and it was difficult for her to attack. After all, she couldn't deal with two top magicians at once. But now, only Li Zi is in Germany. Just as she wanted, as long as the only competitor is eliminated, the origin magic power in Wanda's body will be her own. Agatha was full of evil thoughts in her heart, but she always had a smile like a good neighbor on her face. Wanda, I wish you a pleasant trip to London. Wanda, have a nice trip to London. The corners of Agatha's smiling eyes raised, and she looked like a good neighbor. She picked up the handbag next to her. I have to go back beforehand. See you in Westview Town. Bye. Wanda was infected by her smile, and the corners of her mouth couldn't help but draw an arc. I really know how to pretend. Li Zi looked at the fading back and sneered in his heart. If the old witch becomes an actress, the Academy will award her an Oscar winner. Li, don't you think Aunt Agnes is a nice person? She is the second warmest person I've ever met. Wanda took a sip of tea, recalling the time she spent with Agnes. The other side is always very kind and friendly. She is really warm-hearted. Li Zi didn't speak out of conscience. The old witch was really warm-hearted towards Wanda, and she wished she could take her home and imprison her. He didn't think about the old witch anymore, but stared at Wanda to continue the topic just now. She is the second. Who is the first? You. When I first came to Zijing Town to get along with you, you gave me the feeling that I have known you for a long time. Wanda replied seriously, Li, you were really careful, and you know and understand my situation and my heart at that time. Because we were meant to be a couple. Li Zi was not shy, holding her white and greasy little hand and said. Although he knew everything about Wanda in advance as a time traveler, if fate didn't arrange Wanda to his apartment building. Nor will it develop into the relationship it is today. Go away, glib. Wanda blushed and looked away when she heard the earthy love words, but her heart was very warm. Sure enough. I heard a sentence before, no matter how silly the words of the person I like, it will make people fall. Dee. At this time, the mobile phone on her waist rang. She looked down at the message, and said reluctantly, the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. are here. Well, let's go, come on. Li Zi rubbed her head with tenderness in her eyes. See you tomorrow. Wanda didn't stop too much. It takes more than 2 hours to fly from Germany to London even by Quinjet, so there is no time to waste. And she was afraid that she would leave reluctantly. For some reason, people in love always want to be with their partners. The two seem to be connected by a wire, and they are inseparable. Now Wanda wants to finish the task quickly, and then go back to Westview Town with Li Zi. Before she knew it, she seemed to be looking forward to putting on those clothes and stockings, what Li Zi's expression would be when she saw it. However, she didn't know that after she left, she was on the balcony of a tall building far away. Agatha's eyes were glowing with black aura, and she was staring at this side after traveling 1,000 meters. those eyes that usually looked kindly revealed fierceness. The clothes have also changed from casual clothes to black patterned robes, which are very medieval. Mr. Strachey, our chance has come. The old witch stroked the scarlet-eyed rabbit in her arms, talking to herself in a very gloomy tone. The green plants on the surrounding balconies gradually withered, and the green leaves gradually turned yellow and fell off, as if their anger had been evacuated for a moment. In the living room behind her, several dull people sat on the sofa, motionless. Judging from the clothes, those few are the real owners of the house. Lizzie, I will let you know what happens to those who want to take my stuff. The words fell. Groups of black aura emerged from behind Agatha, swallowing her body like a whirlpool. In the end, as the black aura dissipated, her figure also disappeared. Next second, the people in the living room suddenly came back to their senses, panting in fear. Witches, demons. My God, this demon is finally gone. No, what happened to my body? The few people who thought they were getting out of the predicament at first found that their bodies were losing weight at a speed visible to the naked eye, and their muscles atrophied and their skin tightened. In just a few seconds, everyone turned into skinny. In the end, he completely lost the breath of life and fell to the ground motionless. Even so, the weird phenomenon didn't disappear until they turned into a pile of dust. On the other side, among the high-altitude clouds, Quinjet shuttled through the sea of clouds at high speed, bursting into bursts of cyclone waves as it accelerated. Inside the cabin, Wanda. At the table, Nick Fury stretched out his hand and waved in front of the dazed Wanda. Huh? What's the matter? Wanda's voice is cold. She has always been indifferent to outsiders. Especially someone like Nick Fury. Now is a special moment. I need you to concentrate. Your little boyfriend can't escape in Germany. Except for the bad water quality, everything else is good. Nick Fury reminded. Yes, Scarlet Witch, the situation is serious, and we all need to focus. The mysterious guest Quentin was also in the plane. With a nervous expression, he said again, this time we must not give the elementals any more chances, otherwise they may recover. This is the data detected by the instrument. On the side, Nick Fury has a tablet on the ground, which shows that London's magnetic field is getting more and more chaotic. Why is this? Wanda looked at the contents of the tablet with a more serious expression. Quentin racked his brains to make things look more real, compiling a lot of information files on the elemental crowd. To make it look more real, coupled with real test data, this is why Nick Fury is convinced. Wanda took a deep breath, put away the tablet, and asked, Fury, have you found Sombra? It will be easier with him here. No, Nick Fury shook his head, and then added, it would have been 5 years ago, and now Sombra is sitting next to us. Wait for the next two. Hearing this, the mysterious guest interrupted the two of them, turned to look at Wanda, and said angrily, Wanda, this is a critical moment, we are all on our own. Don't count on anyone else. The huge cabin was filled with his excited roars. You're in a weird mood. Wanda's pupils glowed scarlet, and anyone who knew her well knew that the witch was angry. And the temperature in the cabin dropped suddenly. Mr. Baker, calm down. Nick Fury was a little confused by the sudden rage just now. Seeing the scarlet light in Wanda's eyes and bursts of cold air at this moment, he hurriedly stopped her. He didn't want to be forced to crash the plane. Sorry, I was too impulsive just now. The mysterious guest Quentin felt oppressed, and when he met his beautiful eyes glowing scarlet, he was so frightened that his back was covered in cold sweat. Just now I heard Sombra, the person who had previously destroyed his two plans. In a moment of excitement, he forgot to face Scarlet Witch, one of the strongest Avengers, and yelled out. Now that I come back to my senses, my palms are full of sweat. This is not an example. I'm just here to stop the end of the world, and I'm not a subordinate of any of you. What I do or say has nothing to do with any of you. Wanda put away the scarlet light, turned and left domineeringly without saying a word. Call. Nick Fury breathed a sigh of relief seeing that no conflict broke out. Fortunately, the witch is generous. The mysterious guest's eyes were full of dark light, and he didn't know what he was thinking about. London, England. An ancient and magnificent bridge stands on the Thames River. The bridge connects the two sides of the river and promotes the development of the bustling city. In the tallest tower closest to the Thames, the top floor office just overlooks the bustling scene through the window. There is a constant stream of traffic. A set of detection equipment was placed in the office, and several SHIELD agents turned and left after checking. Wanda stands by the window, admiring the view below. She arrived here more than 10 minutes ago, preparing for the appearance of the elements. She looked away for a moment, looked at Nick Fury sitting on the chair and asked, "What do I need to do?" "Just wait until those beasts show up." Nick Fury's expression was relatively indifferent. After all, as one of the most qualified agents on the planet, he had never seen such a big storm. Even if it is the end of the world, it will not lose its composure. Where did the mystery guest go? Wanda stood by the window waiting, feeling uncomfortable all over, not in the mood to appreciate the bustling beauty of London, especially thinking that Li Zi had nothing to see. She was even less in the mood. Just after finishing speaking, a green figure circled the tower above the sky, and finally floated and stopped outside the glass window. The mysterious guest wore a helmet that looked like a fish tank, and said slowly, "I am patrolling nearby, and I will let you know as soon as I have news." After dropping a sentence, he flew into the deep space and disappeared from everyone's sight. However, he didn't notice that Scarlet Witch's eyes in the tower glowed with a scarlet gleam, as if he had perceived something, and his expression was slightly startled. "What's wrong?" Nick Fury was keenly aware of Wanda's micro-expression, and asked in confusion. "Where did you know Quentin?" Wanda frowned slightly, with some hesitation, before speaking for a moment. "I didn't perceive any sign of life from Quentin, and the person floating outside just now is like a phantom, not a soulless person." "How can it be?" "Hear this." Nick Fury's face was full of disbelief. He didn't think Wanda would deceive himself. Although Wanda loathes being in power a little bit, she will never joke about such a juncture. "I'm a little dizzy today, maybe it's my illusion." Wanda held her forehead, a little dizzy, maybe it was her mistake. Nick Fury didn't answer, but a seed of doubt had already been planted in his heart. And at the same time, near the tower, there is a glass corridor hanging between the buildings. A figure was walking back and forth anxiously. If Nick Fury was here, he would definitely be surprised, because this person is Quentin Baker, also known as Mysterio. However, at the moment, he is not wearing a green combat uniform, but a special effects costume. It's not a helmet, it's a microphone and earphones. Drones follow on both sides. "Quentin, Scarlet Witch may have suspected you. Just now, the signal from the tower office went offline for a short time, and I haven't heard it for 10 seconds. Wilhelm's reminder sounded in Quentin's ear. "There will be no problem for the time being. I have already poisoned her on the plane." The reason why Quentin is sure to come to London for the final decisive battle is naturally because he is sure to avoid Scarlet Witch. Before Tony Stark was alive, he had studied a set of countermeasures for each Avenger, all of which were stored in the Stark Group file Curry. Among them, according to the Stark file Curry, the special gas can temporarily affect her neurons, making telepathy ineffective. "I'm just worried." Wilhelm's voice came again. "Shut up. I won't tolerate any failure in the last scene. If necessary, I will blow up that tower, and no one will survive." Quentin's eyes were full of fierceness, and his tone was extremely gloomy. He had read the archives of Scarlet Witch, so he naturally knew that witches were physically weak, no different from ordinary people. There is no way to withstand the bombing. Thinking, Quentin looked at the world-famous London Bridge above the Thames River, with a cracked smile at the corner of his mouth, and his handsome face looked sick. In 10 minutes, it's time for a good show. And at the same time, Berlin, Germany, an international 5-star hotel. The huge room seemed empty. Li Zi came to the study alone, and closed the curtains with a flick of his hand to block out the sunlight coming in from outside. "Get rid of the old hag Agatha while Wanda is away." Li Zi rubbed his neck, and the clothes on his body changed. An all-black dress covered his whole body, and a mask appeared in his hand. "The thing mentioned earlier is to deal with Agatha. Wanda left so that he can handle things and avoid being disturbed. He has endured the old witch for a long time. Even if he knows his identity, the old witch still covets his wife. Before Agatha comes to me." Li Zi is a bit confused about how the system defines the exposure. Therefore, it is best to use the technique of spiritualization to quietly take Agatha away before she comes to the door. However, just as Li Zi was about to sit down and use the soul astral. Boom boom boom. A knock on the door interrupted him. Who is this point? Li Zi looked at the time. It was already past 5 in the afternoon. He was sure that he didn't order any service, and he didn't have any friends in Germany. "Wait until you walk up to the cat and look at it." He was stunned for a moment, and the mask and black clothes in his hand faded instantly, and he returned to his usual casual clothes. Because the person outside the door was Agatha Nix. She knocked on the door again and shouted in a kind tone. "Lee, are you there? I'm Aunt Agnes. I suddenly remembered that Josh asked me to bring you something." The tone is very kind. But Li Zi clearly felt that the black magic had already accumulated in the other party's body, ready to move, and it seemed that it might explode at any time. Apparently the old hag was all for him, outside the door. "Lee? I know you're home, I heard footsteps." Agatha narrowed her eyes slightly, and looked down at a shadow appearing in the crack of the door. It was obvious that there was someone behind the door, but she did not open the door in hesitation. Seeing this, her expression gradually became fierce. The fingers of her left hand hidden behind her back were slightly bent, and a black magic ball condensed in the palm of her hand. She knocked on the door again with her empty hand. "Lee, are you sure you don't want to open the door?" But the story is not over yet. Next second. Boom. The closed door suddenly blurred, and a black shadow, like a vicious cheetah, suddenly passed through the heavy iron door and rushed towards Agatha. The speed is so fast that it only takes a moment. The black shadow had already hit Agatha's body, and then the black shadow emitted black aura, devouring all the women in front of him, and took her to disappear into the corridor in an instant. The service boy passing by at the end heard the movement and came over, but found that the corridor was empty. Then turn around and leave. At the same time. Over Berlin Park. Under the deep blue sky, a black vortex emerged. Look. What is that? My God, is that a black hole? It's a bit like the aliens portal during the Great War in New York. Aliens again? In the park, countless people raised their heads and stared at the black vortex. Having seen a similar vortex, many backed away with fear on their faces. The police patrolling around came over vigilantly with their guns in hand, but there were also some brave passers-by who, with the spirit of not fearing death, stayed where they were and raised their mobile phones to take pictures. Sudden. Boom. The black vortex turned rapidly, and a figure wearing a medieval European-style robe suddenly fell from it, like a cannonball crashing to the ground. When it passed through the air, it caused bursts of neighing, created a cyclone visible to the naked eye, and smashed hard into the flower beds in the park. In an instant, the ground trembled violently, and the floor tiles rose from the sky. The huge flower bed collapsed, and several extremely deep cracks cracked and spread around it. With the strong wind caused by the moment it landed, dust and mist filled the air. My God! What is that? Is it a meteorite? The onlookers felt the biting wind and the flying stone fragments, and they all retreated in horror. Before the patrolling police officers called for backup. In the black vortex, another black shadow descended from the sky, swooping down and swooping towards the figure below. Boom. Next second. The bombardment like an anti-aircraft gun directly caused a cloud of dust to soar into the sky. In the thick dust and fog, one can vaguely see the black shadow leaning over and grabbing a woman on the ground, grabbing her neck and lifting her up. Cough, cough, cough. Agatha felt the pain of tearing all over her body, and the defensive runes cast by black magic on her body shone with faint white light. She opened her eyes in a trance, looking at the masked man in front of her. You really don't talk. Shut up. Seeing that she was about to speak, Li Zi quickly swung it up and smashed it to the ground again. The spell that emerged from the arm gave infinite power, unreasonably treating Agatha as a hammer, and blasted it to the ground. Boom. Suddenly, the rock layer under his feet cracked suddenly, and the huge amounts of momentum caused the rock layer to rise into the sky, surrounding Li Zi and the two of them. Cough, cough, cough. Agatha couldn't help coughing and bleeding from the corner of her mouth. Her expression was no longer in a trance. After the second blast, she became much more conscious. What's the situation? 10 seconds ago, he was clearly still knocking on the hotel door. In the next second, she experienced a high-altitude fall. It wasn't that Agatha was weak. Everything happened so fast that there was no chance to react. The defense hasn't been broken yet. Li Zi was surprised, worthy of being one of the oldest magicians on Earth. In the face of such a terrifying force bombardment, there was no shattering. Seeing this, Agatha gathered black energy in her palm and was about to fight back. Don't talk. Li Zi threw it out without saying a word. The huge force emanating from the arm caused the surrounding air to surge when Agatha flew out, forming huge amounts of cyclone surges. In the blink of an eye, she rushed straight into a forest, and the dust and mist billowed into the sky. Call. Li Zi took a long breath. The reason why he did this was entirely because of the hidden mission. The system had previously suggested that as long as the other party did not expose it, then it doesn't count as exposure. So if he made Agatha unable to speak out, wouldn't that happen? But apparently, Li Zi thought wrong, and just threw Agatha out, and a reminder sounded in his head. Warn. 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 The current strength of the host is known by one person. Please use any means to make the other party forget you within 30 minutes, otherwise the hidden mission will fail. 30 minutes limit. Sure enough, he was wrong. As long as he was confronted face to face, he would be judged to have failed the hidden mission, but fortunately, he knew that only one person knew his identity at the moment. Boom. Lee, I underestimated you. Agatha stood up staggeringly. She changed from her usual kindness and peace. At the moment, her face was full of ferocity, and bursts of black aura emanated from her body, and the surrounding vegetation was eroded and withered. Coincidentally, I think highly of you. I originally thought that the longer I lived, the higher my attainments would be, but I forgot that trash is trash after all. A genius would have become famous all at once. Li Zi originally thought that the old witch would be difficult to deal with. After all, there are very few necromancers on the earth who have lived for hundreds of years, but looking at it now, her only advantage is age and experience. Think about it too, if it is a genius, it will not come to snatch chaos force. Shut up. Heard the words. Agatha's expression was ferocious, and terrifying black aura erupted from her hands. The deep space above the head suddenly changed, and a black line on the horizon was stained with white clouds at the speed of the naked eye. The originally clear deep space was covered by black clouds in the blink of an eye. The entire city of Berlin was immersed in darkness, and the surrounding air also became oppressive. Got windy. The wind was raging, and the black clouds rolled like waves. Between heaven and earth, the oppressive atmosphere has gone one step further, as if the end of the world is coming. Lee, don't blame me, just blame you for touching what I want. At the moment Agatha's eyes were completely filled with black, and the black aura emanating from her hands rose to the sky one by one, blending with the black clouds. Boom. It was only during the thunder and lightning that black aura could clearly see that a black dragon had condensed above his head before he knew it. The moment the black dragon appeared, everyone noticed the scene. Fear appeared on their faces, and this atmosphere quickly spread to everyone like an infectious disease. Because dragons are evil creatures of the West. It overlooks the head of the earth, as if it will devour everything in the next second. The old witch will magnify her tricks when she comes up. Li Zi looked up into the deep space, with a solemn look on his brows. It seems that the old witch was determined to kill him, but she turned on the big gun directly when she came up. From his point of view, the black dragon looks vast and majestic, and the innate coercion of the dragon race is rising steadily to exert pressure on the world. At this moment, everything looks so small. Roar. While thinking, the black dragon has spread its wings covering the sky, blowing a terrifying gust of wind, and it swooped down towards Li Zi. It opened its huge dragon mouth, and it was bound to devour the people below. Rumble. The dark clouds in the deep space rolled like tides, suppressing a vast and majestic black dragon under the sky, swooping down with bursts of black aura. Its huge body occupied the sky above Berlin Park. The shadowy park was plunged into total darkness, and the wind caused by the black dragon raged across the land. Pieces of trees swayed violently, unable to withstand the sudden collapse and flying. The grassland has long been eroded by black aura, turning it into a withered yellow shape. Worthy of being the most evil magician on earth, showing people's lives like nothing. Below. Li Zi looked directly at the black dragon that swooped down. As a magician, he could clearly feel that the black dragon contained infinite resentment. For centuries, the old witch has been plundering others and absorbing magical power to strengthen herself. The dark magic she uses naturally contains endless resentment. It was the painful groan of the deceased. If you look carefully, you can even see hideous grimaces in the huge body of the black dragon. Old witch, today I will act for the heavens. Li Zi's tone was gloomy, and he said that he wanted to kill Agatha before because of himself. But feeling those screams of losing his soul, he couldn't help being angry. He was not a saint, but he would not kill innocent people indiscriminately. The old witch was far more evil than he had imagined, and the black dragon gathered at least tens of thousands of souls. Thinking about it, driven by anger, white light glowed in his palm and gathered a vortex. The surrounding space was affected and trembled violently. Hum. Amidst bursts of humming, the earth shook and rolled up the soil under his feet. Above the sky. Agatha felt the change in space and looked down at her feet. Found a powerful force, penetrated into the earth, and runes surfaced on the soil. Before she could react. At the moment, with the black dragon descending on the top of the head, Li Zi raised his hands vigorously. I saw that in an instant, the surrounding earth was torn apart, and a mountain peak suddenly surged up, rising and overlapping, like raging waves rushing straight into the sky, and endless rock layers lifted the sky. What kind of spell is this? Seeing this, Agatha manipulated the black dragon to dodge with her mind. But it was too late. The protruding mountain peak has already pierced through the body of the black dragon, and with a roar of the dragon, the condensed figure of black aura turned into gas gathering and dispersing. The black dragon that covered the sky disappeared, and above the Berlin Park, there was a majestic mountain that soared into the sky. Splash earth into rivers. In the bustling city, this scene looks extremely fantastic. Countless passers-by looked at this scene with emotion. Most of them have not recovered, because everything happened so fast just now, and the appearance of the mountain only took a few seconds. Cough cough cough. Agatha looked down, and the gathering and parting of the black dragon also brought her backlash. Blood oozes from the corner of his mouth under a severe cough. Wheeze, old witch, I overestimated you. At this time, a black shadow appeared in front of him. It was Li Zi wearing a mask and wearing black clothes. The moment he appeared, he suddenly raised his hand and slammed at Agatha unreasonably. Boom. When punching, it causes huge amounts of sonic boom, and creates a cyclone visible to the naked eye. Damn it. Facing the sudden attack, Agatha gathered the magic barrier with her hands. However, the barrier that Black Aura had just assembled was smashed by fists in the next second. The terrifying punch landed on her body, and Agatha lost control immediately like a cannonball, falling backward at high speed, skimming through the deep space and smashing hard on the empty street. The strong inertia made her drag more than 10 meters, drawing deep ditches on the road. Cough, cough, cough. In the ditch, Agatha staggered to her feet. The necromancer robe she wore was already in tatters, and her messy hair made her look like a beggar on the street. But now her heart is gradually occupied by fear, and she has no mood to care about it at all. If it wasn't for the defensive runes prepared in advance, Li Zi's punch would have almost killed her. Boom. Before she could breathe a sigh of relief, Li Zi's figure descended from the sky and landed in front of him again. Seeing the old witch who could still stand up, he was a little surprised. Your life is really hard. You must know that the punch just now could have collapsed the Tokyo building. The old witch can still stand up. It seems that the magic level the other party has learned is not low, and her own attainments are also very high. Li, I think there is a misunderstanding between us. Instead of hurting both sides, it's better to sit down and talk. Agatha compromised and chose to give in. She knew that if she continued to fight, she would win. There is a high probability that both sides will suffer. Who will hurt you both? Li Zi smiled. A mocking arc was drawn on his handsome face. You really think I dare not? Hear this. Agatha was burning with anger. Her expression turned completely gloomy. Li, when I was learning magic. Boom, but that's only half the story. Li Zi on the opposite side has already raised his foot suddenly, and with the rune imprint appearing on his foot, the powerful force condenses and explodes. Kicked directly on her stomach. Then Agatha flew backwards at high speed, passing over the city. Fell into the clouds and clouds in the sky, and flew straight to the North Pole at the end of the world. This kick directly regarded Agatha as an intercontinental missile. I'm not a talker, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Li Zi took a deep breath, but no reminder sounded in his mind. The old hag is probably not dead, or still flying. Thinking about it, a black vortex appeared behind him and swallowed him, and the whole person disappeared in midair. All that remains is a mountain that soars into the sky. And the terrified citizens. At the same time. London, England. Tower near the Thames, inside the office. Dee. Nick Fury sat on the chair, took out the ringing mobile phone, and connected the call. I'm Nick Fury. What? Are you sure? Just a few seconds after connecting, his face suddenly became serious. What's wrong? By the window, Wanda wondered when she heard the movement. A dark shadow appeared. Nick Fury called decisively, holding the phone and answering. Isn't that a good thing? Wanda looked at him puzzled. It's not very good. Sombra clashed with others in Berlin and destroyed the entire Berlin Park, and the battle between the two sides was extremely destructive. Nick Fury had a headache for a while. The matter of the elements had not been resolved, and there was another conflict on the other side. Now the council is on the phone, hoping that S.H.I.E.L.D. can intervene in Sombra's affairs to avoid mass casualties. He is helpless about this. What can he do as an ordinary person? Moreover, since the return of Shuo-Mie, what happened on the Earth has exceeded the scope of human cognition. It's simply not something ordinary people can solve. Berlin? Wanda's expression suddenly became tense. Li Zi is also in Berlin, and she is still near the park. Isn't he very dangerous now? Don't be nervous. The information was sent over there just now, and Haiying and the others have already come this way, so we just got together and we will deal with it together. As Nick Fury said, he clicked on a live video from Berlin. Projected on a big screen. In the picture, Haiying punched a woman into the air. The blurry picture flickered a few times, and then jumped to another section, where Haiying held up a mountain peak and pierced through the black dragon. Gift crab. Is this still Earth? Nick Fury was dumbfounded. The Earth is so strange recently. Every ability is like a god. Wait. You rewind the video. Wanda next to her didn't express any emotion, but frowned eagerly. What's wrong? Nick Fury turned back to the original screen in doubt, and pressed the pause button. This picture is a little blurry, but it still captures the woman's facial contours and facial features. Looking at the picture, Wanda always felt familiar. After a few seconds, she covered her mouth and exclaimed. It's Aunt Agnes. It's Aunt Agnes. Wanda saw the woman in the picture clearly, her beautiful eyes widened and she exclaimed. You know her? Nick Fury looked at the woman in the picture and asked. Well, she is the aunt of one of Lee's tenants. We met today. I didn't expect her to have such a side. Wanda stared at the screen, her pretty face full of disbelief. She is a very kind woman and treats me very well. Wanda, there are no strangers in the world who will treat you well for no reason. Nick Fury said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Wanda frowned slightly and fell silent. She carefully recalled that when she got along with Agnes, she didn't find anything abnormal, and the other party was very warm and friendly to her. Rumble. Just then, a deafening thunderclap resounded through the sky, and the blue sky over the Thames suddenly became dark. Here they come. Nick Fury heard the movement, got up and went to the window to look. Is it the elements? Wanda also felt that the air gradually became oppressive. It's really a crowd of elements. Hill Agent pushed the door in, and the tablet in his hand displayed the current data. All are consistent with the data of the previous elements. It's just that the data of the elements detected now is a huge combination, and the energy contained in it is dozens of times more than any element before. At the moment, outside the window, a black line on the horizon swept towards this side at a speed visible to the naked eye, and everything it went was stained black. Boom. In just a few seconds, the entire sky over the Thames River was completely shrouded in black clouds, and under the turbulent and raging winds, a sharp black vortex formed. It looks like a ferocious Shira mask. The river is also raging under the strong wind, rolling up the torrential waves. Above the river, the London Bridge spanning the two banks swayed violently like a ship swaying in a storm. Boom. Next second, a mass of huge monsters suddenly gathered on the river surface. The whole body was composed of storms, and the turbid incarnate bodies sometimes flashed fire, and sometimes flashed blue light. When it appeared, the burst of energy washed over the surroundings, overturned countless vehicles, and knocked down all the passers-by who had no time to dodge on the road. Run. Everyone, run, the driver is gone. Bewitched, it's these things again. Everyone get out of the car. In a sightseeing car on London Bridge, Mr. Linton, Peter's teacher, looked at the huge monster in the distance. His face was pale and he didn't care about other things. The other black teacher was turning pale with fright. He was a materialist before he came on vacation. But now he felt that the whole class was cursed. Wherever you go, you will encounter disaster. The gift crab, although it's fake, it's a bit too realistic. Ned followed him out of the car, muttering, Don't worry, it's all fake. MJ Michelle comforted himself. Boom, just finished. The street lamps on the bridge collapsed. I'm kind of sure he's fake after all. Ned was still in a state of shock, and looked a little dizzy with fright. If I had walked a few more steps just now, I'm afraid I would have been smashed into meat sauce. Stop talking nonsense. The children quickly follow me and get out of here. Mr. K. Linton wiped his sweat, ran in the front and shouted. Everyone didn't dare to delay and ran out of the bridge, and the bridge at the foot of it at the moment was swaying in the strong wind, as if it might collapse at any time. At the same time, in the corridor between the buildings not far away. That's right, that's it. This is an Avenger-level disaster. The more people die and the more serious the casualties, the more people will remember me. The mysterious guest Quentin stood in the glass corridor, overlooking the tragedy on the Thames. Numerous objects were rolled up, and people fled in terror. Seeing this, the corners of his mouth cracked into a satisfied smile, and his emotions gradually became excited. Mum Wilhelm, you can let me appear on stage. No problem. On the other end, Wilhelm sighed deeply and mobilized the drone. Then a green light appeared in the deep space above the heads of the huge group of elements, and then the green figure swooped down, fearlessly killing the behemoth. Endless energy rays suddenly spewed out from his fists, constantly bombarding the muddy bodies of the elements. I want to avenge my family and my world. Above the sky, the mysterious guest Yukong flight blasted out rays angrily. The realistic and terrifying rays full of power flashed with dazzling green light every time. Reflected on the passers-by who fled at the scene. MJ, it's the mystery guest. Ned looked at the green figure, stopped and reminded. It's indeed him. A good man finally came. Let's stop being dumbfounded and get out of here quickly. Teacher K. Linton saw this and pulled him to continue running. As a teacher, he doesn't want his students to have accidents. The office on the top floor of the tower. I'll help him. Wanda looked at the miserable situation over there, turned around and walked out the door. Dee Dee. Wait. At this moment, Nick Fury's phone rang again, and he looked down and said in a deep voice, It's Happy. As he spoke, he pressed the answer button. Immediately, Harpy's incoherent voice came from the other end of the phone. Fury, do you still remember that time? Tony said before that there was a man surfing in the sea, but in fact he was not in the sea. What the hell are you trying to say? Hear this passage. Nick Fury frowned suddenly, his expression became unclear. I mean, don't trust appearances so easily, Harpy said hastily. Happy. Don't make this call in the future, I'm busy. Finished. Nick Fury made the phone call decisively, glanced at Wanda and Hill, and shook his head helplessly. I got it right? Beside, Wanda heard the conversation between the two of them clearly just now, and a faint scarlet light glowed in her eyes. That's right, don't trust appearances easily. Nick Fury nodded forcefully, he didn't want to admit it, but it was true. The dignified world's super agent, as the most golden person on Earth, was tricked by a little-known little guy. If Lee Z can laugh at us all day here, after working so hard for so long, the result is all fake. Wanda's expression became increasingly angry, the scarlet light in her pupils became brighter, and her tone was cold. Let me deal with this guy who wasted my time. Wanda, wait a minute. Nick Fury stopped her again, then pointed to the horizon. That's the shadow. Wanda narrowed her eyes slightly and saw clearly for a moment. Two figures from the sky were flying towards this side at high speed, and when one of them was approaching the London Bridge, it suddenly kicked the figure in front of it. Next second, the figure fell straight towards the London Bridge due to inertia, piercing through the middle of the bridge like an anti-aircraft gun. The ruined bridge collapsed, and countless vehicles sank into the bottom of the sea together. Boom! Under the influence of the elements, the London Bridge had already become devastated. Now, after being violently impacted, the middle part of the bridge collapsed. Countless broken stones fell to the bottom of the river, and Agatha also fell together due to inertia, causing a huge splash. Not far away, the turbid bodies of the elemental crowd composed of strong winds suddenly flickered, and the black clouds that covered the sky and the sun disappeared for a short time, and then recovered instantly. Wilhelm, what's going on? In the promenade, the mysterious man looked out the window, and his angle of view was just right enough to see the collapse of the London Bridge. Naturally, I also noticed that there was a problem with the drone formation. As a result, the projected images of the elements become flickering. Quentin, it's the shadows. Quentin was stunned by Wilhelm's words in his ear, and he asked back. Are you sure? Why didn't you tell me before, but now tell me? Sorry, Edith didn't intercept the message before. Shut up. If something happens to me, everything we've done will be over, and now the control of the drone is all over to me. Quentin roared with a haze on his face, and dispatched the control of the drone. Edith, lock the shadow, lock Nick Fury and Scarlet Witch, wait for my order, and destroy them immediately. Yes, sir. After letting the drones lock on the targets separately, the elements returned to normal. Damn it. Quentin's eyes were full of viciousness. He called out the camera angle of the drone responsible for surveillance, and sure enough a familiar figure appeared in the camera. It was the black shadow that destroyed his plan earlier. At the moment, over the dilapidated London Bridge, black clouds and lightning flashed across the top. Not dead yet. High in the sky, Lee Z's eyes exposed under the mask revealed both surprise and coldness. But it's probably disabled. He looked down at the turbulent river below, and could feel the breath of the old witch still there. It's just that it looks extremely weak, and it may die at any time. Hey Ying. Why are you here? Just as he was about to go down and finish off Agatha, a familiar voice came from behind. Don't look at the deliberately low and magnetic voice. Except for the actor Mysterio, no one will deliberately use a strong accent. Guys, go away, superhero drama is not for you. Lee Z didn't bother to pay attention to him, and swooped down. On the other side, when Quentin heard this in the corridor, his face turned blue with anger. He pressed the microphone and gritted his teeth. What are you talking about? Too much nonsense. Lee Z turned his head and saw the image of the mysterious guest following him. He grabbed the air with his bare hands, and a drone emerged and was firmly grasped in his hand. Next second. Boom. He squeezed it violently with a little force, and then said in a cold tone, Quentin, I'll give you a few minutes to run first, you'd better hurry up, it will be your turn later. In the corridor between buildings in the distance. Boom. Quentin raised his head, just looking at the figure on the bridge, and suddenly felt a chill rushing from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. At the moment, he knew that he had already been exposed. And the other party didn't expose it, it was just disdain. Or, the other party has always used him as a pawn, using his means to plan to become famous. Oh, that's how it is. Quentin's face became more and more gloomy, and these words almost gnashed his teeth. He knew in his heart that it was meaningless to do anything now, and there was no need to continue the scene of the final battle. Because the opponent is a real magician, unless he can kill Sombra. A thought came to his mind, and he said almost submissively, Edith, eliminate the target shadow. Receive. Whoosh, Thames. The violent wind created by the drone in the surrounding phantom still raging on the river surface, setting off torrential waves and churning, constantly stirring up the wreckage that fell into the water. Cough, cough, cough. Among the sinking debris, Agatha used her last bit of strength to surface. There was no trace of blood on her face now. In this contest with the young junior, she has no power to fight back, and there is no room for counterattack. Not long after she surfaced, an invisible hand grabbed her neck. In the next second, the big hand suddenly lifted it up in front of the young Oriental man. Li Zi's eyes were filled with amazement, and he looked at Agatha, who was already covered in injuries. Your life is really tough, no wonder you can live for centuries. Cough, cough, cough. Li, you will regret it. Agatha replied weakly. Kill the person who deserves to be killed, and you will never regret it. While Li Zi was talking, there was the sound of an engine behind him, accompanied by the sound of machinery turning. Caw, caw, caw. Next second, with the flames soaring into the sky, a dense hail of bullets shot towards Li Zi's position. If you look from a distance, you can see a group of drones covering the sky, and all the muzzles covering the sky are pointing towards the place below. Figure. The strong firelight caused by the muzzle almost instantly overwhelms the dimness created by the image. Completely submerge the figure in the sky. The citizens and tourists hiding in the building houses witness the drones appearing out of thin air, shooting the shadows mercilessly, with fear on their faces. Gift crab. Where's Peter? The shadows have already arrived, under the firepower of Mysterio. Can he stand it? Ned, hid in the museum, witnessed all this, and spoke incoherently. I don't know, but this kind of firepower can't even catch a tank. MJ Michelle next to her swallowed. She had survived so many times, her face was pale, and she was still in shock for a long time. At the same time, in the glass corridor. Sombra, don't blame me, people need a hero worth remembering. Quentin looked at the figure submerged in the flames, with an extremely evil smile on his lips. Now there is only one thing on his mind, killing Sombra. Get everything back on track, and then he will still be the superhero that everyone is looking forward to. The world will always remember Mysterio, he is the real superhero. However, the next second, the scene outside the window made Quentin's expression suddenly stiff. On the bridge, the black shadow was still in the air, but the bullets fired by the drones seemed to be blocked, and all of them were suspended in the air. And the hundreds of drones also stopped moving forward, and clusters of scarlet light wrapped around the fuselage. Signal sources are isolated so that they are separated from the host. And the real culprit who caused all of this, at the moment, was standing on the defective bridge, spreading his arms and fingertips emitting endless scarlet light, interweaving into a net to envelop hundreds of drones. Then the scarlet net suddenly tightened, crushing the drone abruptly. Boom. Under the tremendous pressure, the drones were like bombs, bursting one after another, emitting endless sparks to disperse. Damn it, it's Scarlet Witch. Quentin noticed the beautiful figure and punched the wall angrily. At this time, Wilhelm's reminder sounded in his ears, Quentin, leave first, we can't deal with them. Boom. At this moment, a figure descended from the sky and crashed into the glass wall from the side. It was the late Peter Parker, who had arrived before, but when he was about to jump off the plane, he saw that the London Bridge was destroyed. Happy drove the plane around for safety, before little Spider-Man found a chance to jump out. And found the location of the mysterious guest. Little Spider-Man looked angry and strode towards Quentin. Sorry sir, you can't leave today. Peter? You came just in time. Seeing him appear, Quentin didn't feel scared, but smiled instead. The other side. Over London Bridge. Endless gunpowder smoke filled the air, and bullet casings were scattered all over the place. As far as the eye can see, there are fragments of drones everywhere, and at the moment cannot be reorganized due to the lack of more than 100 drones. The black cloud that covered the Thames River has long since disappeared. The violent wind also stopped. Quentin is really courting death. Li Zi looked at the wreckage of shell casings all over the place. His face under the mask was covered with haze. Although these could not harm him, no one wanted to be provoked. Wanda. However, when he saw the familiar figure at Chowtu, his eyes suddenly softened a lot, and the corners of his mouth unconsciously curved. Li, I told you that I will make you regret it. If Wanda knows that you are approaching her for origin magic power, what will she think? Agatha, who was caught in her hands and was dying, said in a deep voice. You think I'm doing it for origin magic power? Li Zi sneered. Li, no one will care if you are really for origin magic power. Agatha laughed. Deceit is often the deadliest thing, and you will regret everything you have done. Tongue dry. Li Zi stopped talking nonsense, tightened his wrists, and felt the sound of bones breaking in his palms. Agatha without defensive runes is just an ordinary person. Then a reminder sounded. Ding. The host crisis has been resolved, the current number of known people, 0. After he was sure that the person was dead, he let go and threw it away. Boom. Agatha's body fell to the ground. I don't know if it was an illusion. She landed on her back, facing the sky with her eyes wide open and full of fear of death, staring straight at Li Zi. The atmosphere is particularly eerie. Death is not a pity. Li Zi didn't care to look away, took a deep breath, and was about to say hello to his witch. But the next second, whoosh, he felt a fragrance rushing from behind him, and then a pair of hands glowing scarlet light stretched out like ghosts, and the white and greasy hands grabbed onto his mask. Li Zi was slightly taken aback. It was Wanda's hand. Over the broken London Bridge. At the moment Li Zi floated behind a scarlet shadow, a pair of beautiful eyes glowing with a strange red light, and a beautiful face revealing a cold charm. Her greasy white hand was already on Li Zi's mask. Followed by a tug, however, the mask did not move at all, and the power of runes glowed on it, making it impossible for people to move even half a cent. Whoosh. Next second. Li Zi in front of him turned into a ball of black aura, floated a few meters away, and then condensed into a human form again, and said in a teasing tone, Scarlet Witch, it's very impolite to steal other people's masks secretly. Who the hell are you? Why did you kill Agnes? Wanda's eyes were icy cold. She didn't choose to do it directly. It was because she had a hunch that the reason why Agnes approached her might be for some purpose. What Nick Fury said earlier reminded her that no stranger would be nice to someone for no reason, recalling the time when she was with Agnes. The other party seemed to be paying attention to his movements everywhere, especially when he thought of meeting her in Germany today. Originally nothing, but combined with the current situation. There is clearly something wrong with all of this. You mean her? Her name is not Agnes. Agatha Nix is her real name. Li Zi was taken aback for a moment. He didn't expect the witch to ask such a question. He thought the witch would do it directly. After all, the witch had a good impression of Agatha and thought the old witch was a friendly neighbor. But that's good, otherwise it would appear that his witch is easy to deceive. How do I know if you're lying? Wanda said slowly. I think you know how to prove it. After speaking, Li Zi looked at her with a smile without saying a word. Origin magic power has the attribute of mind, which can capture some thoughts left by the decedent during his lifetime. But before that, he had already cleared Agatha's memory about himself, so he didn't have to worry about being discovered by Wanda. Chaos Force. Wanda muttered to herself. She did have a way to prove the truth, thinking that she fell to the ground, looking at the dead body with wide-eyed eyes on the ground. After hesitation for a while, she stretched out her hand to close Agatha's eyes, her fingertips emitted scarlet light, and kept searching for the soul of the corpse owner. For a moment, Wanda's eyes dimmed. Obviously she already knew the answer. Are you okay? Li Zi was sensitive to the witch's mood swings, and asked a bit distressed. It's okay, thank you Sombra. Wanda said it was fine, but felt wronged in her heart. The so-called good neighbors, kindness and friendliness are all for the purpose of capturing the origin magic power in one's body. Even if you are prepared in your heart, it is a lie to say that you are not sad when you learn the truth. Nobody wants to be lied to, no thanks. Li Zi knows that Wanda must be very sad, but she never confides in others. Always looked nonchalant. But looking at the depressed Wanda, he made a mistake, and Agatha can make a witch so sad. Then what should he do in the future? How will he explain his identity and strength? Hi Ying, the commotion you caused is really big. People from the World Security Council have already blown up my phone. It was Nick Fury. He had just come down from the tower. He was still panting. His face was full of displeasure. Because Sombra fought all the way from Germany to London. The Security Council was all over the place, and they called every now and then to urge them. What they meant was not to let the shadows destroy London. I thought they wouldn't be looking for S.H.I.E.L.D. to do things with the Heavenly Sword Bureau. Seeing him coming, Li Zi joked. What? Come on, the Heavenly Sword Bureau is just a baby in front of us. As long as it is still on the earth, S.H.I.E.L.D. will never be replaced. When Nick Fury heard this, his face darkened a lot. As soon as he came, he was poked at the pain point. Hai Ying was the same as Li Zi. I don't know if it was intentional or not. Then he noticed Agatha's body on the ground, and couldn't help complaining. In this day and age, you really can't believe appearances. Yeah, I didn't expect that the dignified S.H.I.E.L.D. leader would be tricked by an unknown person. Backquote. Li Zi kicked the drone and just landed on Nick Fury's feet. Actually, you already knew he was a fake, right? Nick Fury wasn't angry. After all, it was a fact that he was being tricked. But he thought of Sombra's previous actions, and it was obvious that he had already known about the mysterious guest situation. I've always seen the details. Just as Li Zi was halfway through speaking, he saw Wanda, who had been silent beside him, with a strange red light in his pupils, looking at him quietly. As if to say that you wasted my time with my boyfriend? Li Zi caught the witch's gaze and quickly changed his words. Actually, I just found out not too long ago. He didn't want to fight with the witch here. It would be bad if he inadvertently injured the witch. Fury. Where's Spider-Man? Wanda was too tired to ask any more questions. She turned her eyes away and looked around. Isn't he already here? Boom. At this time, a figure in the distance swung over vigorously and landed not far away. He took off his headgear vigorously, revealing a face full of scars, panting tiredly, and limping over. I am here. I may have done something bad. Peter's mood was very unstable. He waved his hands incoherently. What did you do again? Nick Fury wondered. I did nothing but Quentin Baker and he died. Peter Parker took a deep breath and said slowly, he was accidentally injured by a drone and bled profusely. Peter, that's not your fault. Nick Fury heaved a sigh of relief when he heard the words, thinking it was a big deal. Mysterious guest's death is at most an early relief. If it is handed over to a super agent, he will not die so easily. Besides, his death is not your fault. Everything is what he deserved. Li Zi stepped forward and patted Peter's shoulder meaningfully, and the face under the mask frowned slightly. It seems that his appearance did not prevent the final battle between Little Spider-Man and Mysterio. You must know that this decisive battle directly led to the occurrence of the incident of the 3 insects in the same frame. Because Quentin Baker used the final decisive battle with Little Spider-Man to fake the video of Peter Parker shooting Mysterio to death because of envy. As a result, Peter Parker's identity was exposed, and he was spurned by countless people. Life was completely disrupted. In desperation, Peter Parker had no choice but to find Doctor Strange, trying to make the world forget about him, and finally caused chaos in the multi-universe. Peter Parker from the other 2 universes came to the 199,999 universe by chance. But Quentin and I should be friends. Peter Parker lost his way. I understand your feelings, but you are a superhero. There are still many such things to go through in the future. You have to learn to adapt to growth, and you can't be easily defeated. Li Zi knew that there was a high probability that the 3 bugs would be in the same frame and could not be avoided, so he could only enlighten Little Spider-Man, so as to prevent the young people from thinking wildly and making things worse. He remembered that Little Spider-Man was obviously influenced by the mysterious guest when he was in the same frame as the 3 insects. Sombra, thank you. After listening, Peter nodded, feeling much better. He couldn't be beaten easily. Mr. Stark handed the glasses to himself, having said that a crown bears its weight. He can't be easily defeated, not to mention that Quentin has been lying to himself from beginning to end. Are you good at comforting people? In the back, Wanda, who had been silent all the time, looked at the figure of the black figure comforting Peter, and always felt a little familiar, which reminded her of Li Zi. This is all chicken soup from seniors. Li Zi heard the witch's words, turned to meet her gaze, and was taken aback. Why do I always feel that the witch sees something? It seems that he has to leave quickly, and if he stays for a long time, there may be real problems. Thinking about it, he glanced at the horizon where Liang had already sunk into the horizon, and found an excuse to slip away. Since the matter is over, everyone has a chance to see you again. Hey, Sombra, what I said before. Seeing that he was leaving, Nick Fury hurried over and wanted to mention joining S.H.I.E.L.D. However, Li Zi didn't give it a chance at all, snapped his fingers, and a black vortex formed behind him, swallowing his body completely in the blink of an eye. Disappeared in place in an instant. Mare fuck, there are more and more freaks on the earth now. Nick Fury's face turned black when he saw this. He really didn't give himself this super agent face. Mr. Fury, Happy is still waiting for me, I'll go back first. Peter Parker saw that it was getting late, and he didn't wait for Nick Fury to answer. He had already put on the hood, stretched out his hand and shot the cobweb, jumped up on the spot, swinging on the swing and flying towards the bridge. Okay, another one. Nick Fury was speechless, as the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. himself was completely ignored. Fury, I'm going back to Germany. Wanda saw that everyone was gone, and it was still early, so she rushed back to Germany and could arrive at 8 p.m. at the most, so she could still have dinner with Li Zi. Faced with this request, Nick Fury did not refuse. He knew that this mission was completely a personal mistake and wasted too much time. Don't talk about superiors, colleagues are probably watching jokes. Not for a while. Quinjet flew in to pick up Wanda, but Nick Fury didn't get on the plane, he had other things to attend to. He and Hill got into the car and left London. In the car. Terry, did you tell him? In the passenger seat, Hill agent looked at Nick Fury who was driving, and shook his head angrily. Next second. A surprising scene appeared, and I saw that Hill's appearance changed unexpectedly, turning into a Skrull with green skin like a lizard. No need, this matter has been settled. At this time, Nick Fury in the driver's seat also turned into a Skrull. It's the same as Lee Z thought. Now Nick Fury and Hill on Earth are both shape-shifted by Skrulls. You have to tell him. The female Skrull was speechless. Okay, can you blame me for this? Those data, images, destructive power, acting skills, and how realistic the costume is, I don't even have the face to say that I have shape-shifting ability. With embarrassment on his face, Terry yelled and picked up his mobile phone to make a call, which showed Nick Fury's famous minister. International Hotel, Berlin, Germany. Click. The door opens. Lee, are you there? Full of expectation, Wanda pushed the door open and entered the cold environment of the room, which made her frown slightly. Although it was confirmed at Hill before coming here that Lee Z hadn't gone out since this afternoon, but the overly cold atmosphere always made people feel uncomfortable. Plum? She called out again, but still no one answered. When I entered the room, I found that the room was empty. The quilt on the bed was placed neatly, the heating was turned off, and the autumn air filled the space. Not here. Wanda touched the TV, it was extremely cold, and she felt a little lost. Boom. Kai. Witch, is that you? I'm playing CS in the study. The door of the study at the other end opened, and Li Shi leaned out halfway to look into the room. In fact, he just arrived, and when he came back, he saw that the house was too cold to turn on the heating, and he didn't think there was enough time, so he went back to the study and pretended to be playing games. Lee, I thought you weren't here. Wanda's heart warmed when she heard the familiar voice, and she ran over excitedly to hug Lee Z. What's wrong? Lee Z stroked her back and wondered. Aunt Agnes is a liar. Wanda recounted the matter aggrievedly, her brows were full of sadness. Obviously, what happened to Agatha was really heartbreaking. After all, the friends who thought they were sincere to each other turned out to get their origin magic power. See yourself as a tool from beginning to end. It's okay, it's all over. Lee Z looked at the witch in his arms, and didn't know what to say for a moment. After all, he himself was a liar, so it wasn't much better. He sighed, and said softly, I made a reservation at the restaurant. Do you want to go out for a meal together? We will go back to Westview Town tomorrow. If you don't try German food, you will be wrong. Pass. Wanda rubbed her stomach and gurgled. Hotels near Central Park. In the past, the number of people in this restaurant was not the highest at 8 o'clock, but today it is different. In particular, many people are scrambling to reserve a seat by the window. The reason is simple. Because the location of the hotel just happens to be able to see the majestic mountain peak standing in the Central Park, the mountain peak soaring into the sky, standing in the middle of the bustling city, it looks extremely fantastic. To be precise, the mountain has replaced Central Park. Lee, why did you pick this place? Wanda is leaning against the window, looking up at the entrance of Fat Xing's tomb. I didn't expect Central Park to turn out like this either. Lee Z swears, he really doesn't know. The location of the hotel has been booked in the morning. I originally wanted to sit in this location and enjoy the beautiful scenery of the Central Park. He ended up destroying Central Park by accident this afternoon. Actually, that's pretty good. It's the first time I've seen such a high mountain. Wanda propped her white chin with one hand, admiring the majestic mountain peak, which seemed to be made by a black shadow. Well, that's what I read on the news. Lee Z was slightly stunned and nodded, then asked casually, what do you think of Sombra? Why do you ask? Wanda is puzzled. I see that many people admire him and think that Sombra will become a qualified superhero. Lee Z said unhurriedly, he was curious what the witch thought of his other image. I don't know him well. But he exposed Agatha today, otherwise I will always be kept in the dark. Speaking of which, Wanda has pure eyes like a lake of clean water, revealing melancholy. Lee Z, who was sitting across from her, saw the hesitation. Sure enough, deception hit the witch hard, and anyone would be hit hard. He looked at Wanda hesitation for a while, and said in a deep voice, there is something I want to tell you. What's up? Wanda, actually what do you want to say? At night, the hotel lights are slightly orange, as if covered with a layer of tulle, it shines on Wanda's face, and she looks at Lee Z with beautiful eyes like a lake of clean water. Actually, Lee Z's heart softened when he met the witch's clear eyes. The eyes of the witch are as sweet as she is. After what happened to Agatha, the witch looks extremely clear and cherished, especially her eyes are different from other women. For other people who have experienced so many things, their eyes look a little cloudy. But the witch's eyes are like a baby's, crystal clear and flickering with the lights on the table, making people want to hold it in their hands. Why are you so smudged today? Just tell me if you have something to say. Wanda looked at him strangely, the sunny guy who used to be so carefree. Why is he hemming and hawing today? This is the first time I have seen him after being together for so long. Actually, I'm not an ordinary person. I also have superpowers. To be precise, it's magic. Li Zi took a deep breath and went straight to the showdown. At worst, he would hide and start all over again. Anyway, it's just another year of salty fish lying flat again. After speaking, he directly lowered his head slightly, not wanting to see Wanda's reaction. However, after waiting for a long time, the air seemed to be still. The woman on the opposite side didn't make a sound, and he slowly raised his head to realize that Nanwang was actually dipping bread with butter. Wanda felt the eyes look up, looking at him. I told you, you didn't respond. Li Zi couldn't hold back his face, but the witch didn't respond at all. I'm really. Li, stop talking. Before he finished speaking, Wanda stretched out her small white hand, covered his mouth directly, and looked around in embarrassment. I was relieved to find that no one was looking. What are you doing? Li Zi looked around in confusion. Well, I believe you, but don't say any more. I'm afraid of dying in vain. Wanda nodded vigorously. She was really worried that for a while Li Zi said something like, I am a superhero, out loud, and then they became the most eye-catching couple in the audience. Thinking of that scene, she felt like she was going to die. But the reason why Li Zi said this must be to comfort herself. She couldn't help feeling warm in her heart, and said softly, Li, I know you are trying to please me. I am already in a much better mood, but I don't want to die. I'm telling the truth. Li Zi stared blankly at the woman for a long time, then came to his senses and fumbled for a long time to tell the truth. The witch didn't believe it. If she believed it, the system would have given a reminder by now, but there was no sound at all. This is simply an insult. You must show her your hands. Sir, ma'am, this is lobster for two. Just when he was about to show off, the waiter in charge of their table came over with the dishes. Thanks. Smelling the aroma, Wanda couldn't wait to open the small pot lid, and the bursts of scallion-flavored freshness filled the nostrils, which whetted the appetite. Thanks. Li Zi also took the tableware politely, and waited for the waiter to leave. He looked at the witch who was eager to try the lobster again. Wanda, listen to me. Li, will you listen to me about makeup first? When Wanda heard his words, there was distress in her brows. Okay. Although Li Zi couldn't understand why the witch's face showed distress, but he wanted to hear what the witch had to say. I understand your feelings, but Li, you really don't need to care about your own identity. You feel that super abilities or magic will become a gap between the two of us. No matter what, we will never be separated. As Wanda said, she couldn't help stretching out her hand, stroking Li Zi's face distress-edly. I'm sorry. It's my fault that I have been participating in the Avengers mission recently and didn't care about you. Witch, you. Hear the words. Li Zi was stunned when he felt the witch's sudden tenderness, so his witch thought he was worried about this problem? Li, you are already excellent. You are humorous, optimistic, helpful, and always handle everything well. Seeing him in a daze, Wanda stretched out her little hand to hold the minister tightly in distress. Li Zi felt the warmth of the witch's palm, and the corners of his mouth could not help but draw an arc. So don't talk about what happened just now, and eat the lobster first. Wanda let go and stroked his head. Then I couldn't wait to look at the delicious big lobster on the plate. The tender and smooth white meat was naked to seduce myself. The witch licked her lips with her pink tongue, inserted a piece of meat into her mouth, and ate it with relish. But you. Li Zi still wanted to show his hand, but seeing the ghostly gaze from the opposite witch, he put this idea aside for now. Let's talk about it later. Anyway, as I said just now, the witch has already made preparations in her heart. Besides, he didn't come here for Chaos Force, he just really cared about witches, and he wasn't interested in anything else. It is completely different from that old hag of Agatha. You two, here are the sausage salad and big sausage you ordered. The waiter came over again with the dishes. The younger brother is German, but he speaks fluent English. He put down 2 plates of sausages of different styles and turned away. It's ugly. Wanda poked at the 2 large charcoal grilled sausages on the plate, showing disgust between her brows. I think it's not bad. I heard that the Germans make good sausages. Li Zi said slowly. I suddenly remembered a joke about the German team in the World Cup. What a joke? Wanda asked curiously. The Germans brought a full month's worth of sausages to participate in the World Cup, but they were hastily eliminated in the group stage. Out of the group stage of 2 consecutive World Cups. Angry fans and many passers-by teased the German players, stop playing football and go to the roadside to sell sausages. This is how I got to know German sausages. After Li Zi finished eating the lobster on the plate, smelling the delicious seafood, he added helplessly, it's time for those guys from Definitely Washaw Football to sell seafood. He hasn't been able to see it in his lifetime. Bah, It's because he didn't have the opportunity to see the national football team break into the World Cup before time travel. Hush, Lee, this is a German restaurant. Wanda gave him a blank stare when she heard this, because this guy doesn't care about the occasion when he speaks. After speaking, the witch took a bite of the thick sausage, and her eyes lit up. It doesn't look good, but it's delicious. Really? I'll try it too. Lee Z said so, but he didn't take those uncut thick wooden sausages. Instead, insert the salad sausage that has been sliced. Because the picture of the witch eating sausage was so powerful that it reminded him of some strange things, and he couldn't get them out of his mind. What's wrong with you? Wanda looked at him purely with clear eyes and asked in doubt. Lee Z met the witch's eyes that were as clear as a baby's, and looked at her small cherry mouth gnawing on the big roast sausage. Such a discordant but reminiscent picture. Lee Z swallowed involuntarily, and said in a mysterious way, "Actually, I also have experience in making sausages." Real? When Wanda heard it, her eyes lit up. As expected of my man, he can actually cook sausages. Then I'll try it when I go back tomorrow, she said quickly. Cough cough cough. It's okay. Lee Z couldn't help coughing when he heard that. Why did he have the illusion of coaxing the little girl? Wrong. My wife, what are you afraid of? Don't be dazed, eat quickly or it will get cold. Wanda didn't notice the difference. She ate until her mouth was full of oil stains. But she is very gluttonous and doesn't eat much. After eating the sausage, he was basically full. He sat on the chair with a satisfied face, admiring the night view of the bustling city outside. In particular, a mountain towering straight into the sky stands between the cities, adding fantasy to the city. Do you think the mayor will dig up the mountain? Wanda said. Maybe there is this idea, but the mountain is so high, he probably has no power. Lee Z reached out and wiped the grease stains around her mouth with a paper towel, and looked up at the majestic mountains outside together, with some emotion in his eyes. Sure enough, as expected of me, I can create such a majestic mountain with a wave of my hand, handsome. It seems to be the case, Wanda nodded. Unless the mountain is a threat, no one wants to spend money on it, and the mountain has gone viral on Instagram. Lee Z explained. Because it is a mountain made by the shadow, many netizens call it the Black Shadow Mountain. In the future, it is estimated that many people will come here to travel and watch, and then it will drive a wave of economy. Human beings have always been weird creatures. Although they are just seemingly useless things, they can attract countless people to watch. Yeah, I got it. The witch nodded along with the rhythm of his speech, with a half-understanding look. Are you full? It's getting late, it's time to go back. Lee Z rubbed her head and asked. The two went downstairs, and since the hotel was nearby, they walked back on foot, digesting along the way, and feeling the German street culture by the way. Same as other big football nations. On the way back, I often saw people playing football on the street. Even if there was no court, I could still see a few children playing the rim game in football. Boom. While Lee Z and Wanda were waiting for the traffic lights on the side of the road, a football rolled over under their feet, and it was a mistake made by a few children in the distance when they were grabbing the lap. Hey, kick me back. Among them, the little boy stood not far away and shouted. Hiddle, he is a Chinese person who can't understand, we shouldn't go there by ourselves. The other boy spoke German, but he meant something. Lee, they underestimated you. Wanda laughed. Wanda, do you understand German? Lee Z can also understand German, and he taught himself by creating magic before, but he didn't care about what the children said, and he was more concerned that the witch could do it. When I was a child, I met a German friend on the stowaway's boat, and I learned a little fur from her when I got along with her. Recalls Wanda. You're a genius. Lee Z seems to have discovered that witches actually have abilities in many other aspects besides magic. Is talking. The boy had already trotted over, and was just about to pick up the ball when a voice stopped him. Hey, let me teach you how to kick. It's Lee Z. He didn't bother to pay attention to a group of brats, but they all came forward to provoke him. How could he show weakness? Give the Chinese people a name up and down. It's not that China doesn't know how to play football. Think about it, there are so many geniuses in Europe with only 700 to 800 million people. There are more than 1 billion people in my great China. How could there not be 11 people? It's just that the genius has been buried. Coming narration. Wanda smiled helplessly. She knew this guy would not leave easily. Although a bit naive, she didn't feel bored. Instead she leaned on the telephone pole and looked at him expectantly. You can. Doubts were written on the boy's face. Few Chinese people can play football. When they went to the World Cup and saw yellow-skinned people playing football, many people thought they were islanders. Is he mistaken? This is an islander? The young man doesn't know. If Lee Z knows his inner thoughts, he will definitely be strangled by the neck and yelled, talk carefully. Why are you insulting people all of a sudden? Definitely. Li Zi is confident. He was also the leader of the school team back then. If it weren't for the exam, I don't know what it would have become. If you can kick the ball to the opposite trash can, you win. The boy pointed to a trash can across the road and said. No problem. As Li Zi said, he picked up the ball on the ground and put it at his feet. Several friends of the boy ran over, and the children sat on the steps of a shop full of anticipation. I want to see what this Chinese man is going to do. The boy stood behind Li Zi. He didn't believe that the big brother in front of him could kick the ball in. Although this road is about 10 meters wide, it is almost the distance from the penalty area to the goal, and it is not very far. But the difficulty lies in kicking the ball into the trash can of file size at the mouth of the basin. Even professional football players, very few people can do it all at once. Look, I'll teach you once. Li Zi didn't make any extra moves, and took a few good steps back. Then he ran over with a few strides, kicked the ball directly below the ball lightly, and then the ball flew upwards. Under the radiance of orange street lamps, the ball drew a perfect arc in midair, drawing a full moon scimitar. Whoosh. Bang. Next second. The ball fell steadily into the trash can, and when it fell, it touched the lid of the trash can, and brought the lid to cover it together. Oh shit. China's version of Beckham. Seeing this, several children sitting on the steps couldn't help but stood up and raised their arms high and exclaimed. For them, the coolest thing in the world is to kick a wonderful world wave goal. The boy couldn't help exclaiming when he saw this scene. His mouth was so wide open that he could stuff an egg. Kid, study hard. Li Zi patted the boy on the shoulder like an old man. Wanda next to him was also stunned. She doesn't watch the ball, but she can see how powerful the ball is. Green light is gone. At this time, Li Zi glanced at the traffic light, and found that it was already green, pulled Wanda and walked across the road, leaving behind a shocked teenager. When a few children wanted to chase, they found that the road was blocked by a car at a red light. They felt a little sorry, and let a great God go. Not for a while. In the hotel corridor. I thought you'd teach him a few more words. Wanda couldn't help laughing when she remembered what happened just now. It's just a child, it's not necessary, and the ball just now is the best lesson. Li Zi replied. Maybe he will plant a dream of becoming a football superstar in his heart. Wanda is thoughtful. One thing may really affect a person's life. At this time, a hand beside her has already reached out and hugged her waist. Don't think about it, it's not too late, I think. Li, no. But didn't you say that you would reward me? Go back to Zijing Town tomorrow and let's talk about it. The clothes should arrive tomorrow. Good. The next afternoon, New York International Airport. On weekends, the airport is full of people, and all kinds of people pass through the security gate. In a fast-paced city, not many people will slow down. On the bus stop sign outside the gate, two figures, one tall and one short, each pulling a suitcase, stood under the sun visor and waited for the bus. Go out to save the world, go round and come back. Looking at the bustling city, Li Zi stretched his body and took a deep breath. Obviously only went out for 3 days, but I always feel that it has been a long time, and what happened in these 3 days is too much. That's not saving the world, it's all a hoax. Wanda heard this and thought of the so-called end of the world mission that she participated in, and it turned out to be all a drama. That's not to blame, you, it's the black marinated egg. Li Zi comforted with a smile. Besides, stopping the mystery man is also a memorable thing. If he doesn't stop him, I can't imagine how many people will be deceived in the future. Hey, Mysterio is right. Most people are only willing to believe appearances, and a few people care about the truth. Wanda sighed deeply. After going through these 3 days, she will not trust anyone easily in the future. No one is wrong, people just want to believe what they see. Li Zi thought to himself, what can ordinary people do in this age of chaos? You can only sit in front of the TV and watch the daily news, who can verify whether it is true or not. The number 11 bus has arrived. At this moment, a bus stopped in front of him, and Wanda dragged him onto the bus. Since there were not many people taking the bus at this point, there were still many empty seats on the bus. The two got in the car, and Li Zi sat down by the window. He is not used to riding in a bus and always gets motion sickness, so he usually sits by the window. The scenery outside the window can relieve the feeling of motion sickness. The destination of the bus is the train station. Li Zi and Wanda plan to take the train back to Westview Town. The train is much faster than the car. The car looks like it's going through Brooklyn. Wanda next to her raised her head, looked at the road map and said, well, what's the matter? Li Zi wondered. Nothing, just thinking of an old friend. Wanda said slowly. Captain America? Li Zi guessed that it must be one of the big three without thinking too much. Steve Rogers. In the previous world, there was a controversial Chaweng. Some people thought he was a villain with double standards, while others thought he was democratic, had a big picture, and always treated things with justice. In any case, Captain America is indeed one of the big three and one of the most indispensable souls. He's a nice guy, and I wish you two could meet, but he's gone now. Wanda is talking. She froze suddenly, frowning and looking towards the front of the army. Wanda? Li Zi noticed her gaze, and then felt a sense of crisis. Before he could sound a warning to the driver. Next second. Bang! When the bus was approaching the intersection, a black commercial van driving at high speed suddenly rushed out from the road on the right. Fack. The uncle driver's face changed drastically when he saw this, and he turned the steering wheel violently while cursing. The entire car tilted instantly, and the cabin flicked sharply as the steering wheel turned, and the people in the car grabbed the nearest object to stabilize their bodies. Even if the driver reacted quickly, the front of the car still rubbed against the van, shook violently a few times, and the sun hit the sidewalk guardrail. Kai bursts of black smoke rose from the front of the car, and all the passengers sat in their chairs in shock. Wardfa. How did you drive the car? You really want to die. The uncle driver cursed, took off his seatbelt and was about to get out of the car to teach the owner of the van. Bang. However, I didn't expect a group of robbers with guns and masks to get out of the car first. The big man in the head immediately pointed his gun at the driver. If you don't want to die, open the door. The big man's voice was not loud, but it was as cold as the muzzle of the gun in his hand. No one can refuse. It's over, this damn country has human troops in urban areas. A bunch of lunatics, they will definitely not let anyone go. Looking at a group of desperados outside, the passengers in the car were suddenly shrouded in fear, and sat on the chairs with pale faces. Which, you seem to have the ability to attract criminals. But Li Zi was not nervous, he whispered into Wanda's ear with a smile. Nonsense. Every time we meet a gangster, we can always stay together, it's not sure who attracts us. Wanda stuck out her pink tongue at him, and then looked helplessly at the group of desperados outside the car, finally ending the matter of the mysterious guest. As a result, he was hijacked as soon as he got off the plane. This country is America, but a group of desperados hijacking a car on the street is also a small probability event, and she can actually run into it. Is it true that what Li Zi said, she has the attribute of attracting criminals? Don't shoot, I'll open the door. At this moment, the uncle driver had already opened the door, and he was trembling on the steering wheel with his head in his hands. You made the right choice, a smart decision. The leader, the big man, walked into the car with a gun in his hand, and his fierce eyes swept over the panicked passengers, with jokes in his eyes. He yelled, "Guys, please cooperate with us, no one will be hurt." As soon as the boss finished speaking, he noticed the seat behind him. A woman in a scarlet windbreaker stood up, and the passengers around her noticed her, especially her beautiful fair face, which was extremely eye-catching. Little beauty, I know that you have an advantage in some aspects, but the gun in my hand has no eyes, please sit down obediently. When the leader saw Wanda, his eyes straightened instantly, and he kept looking at the witch's mature and charming figure, and the face under the mask gradually became obscene. Court death. In the back seat, Li Zi was still waiting for his own witch to show her magic, but saw the greed in the eyes of the kidnapper leader, unscrupulous lightning. His mood was suddenly cold, and there was a chill in his eyes. Boy, pay attention to your eyes, even if she is your girlfriend, you have to be obedient to me. The younger brother who got into the car just happened to see Li Zi's fierce gaze, and he cut his neck as he spoke, threatening, "Otherwise, huh." But that's not all. His face suddenly became stiff, and his breathing became rapid, as if there was an invisible hand, he strangled his neck tightly, unable to breathe. Third. The leader turned his head when he heard the movement, and saw that the younger brother's neck was wrapped in scarlet light. Looking back at Wanda again, he bumped into a pair of icy eyes glowing scarlet, and suddenly he felt a chill from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. The hand that gripped the gun tightly could not move even a little bit. You don't deserve to live in this world. Wanda's tone was extremely cold, especially when she thought of Li Zi being threatened just now. While speaking, the entire compartment was covered in cold air, and the temperature dropped sharply. Boss. What's the matter? At this time, a younger brother who didn't know why got into the car. Shoot. The leader hurriedly shouted. Boom. Unrepentant. With a wave of her hand, Wanda directly threw the leader out of the window. With a flick of the other fingertip, the other two fell out of the car instantly under a huge impact. What happened? The three people who were carrying goods in the van outside the car rushed over when they heard the movement, and saw that they all fell to the ground. And at the front door of the bus, a figure glowing scarlet came out. Without waiting for a few people to react, they only felt their eyes turn red, and then they lost control of their bodies and threw them backwards, falling to the wall abruptly and feeling tearing pain all over their bodies. Ahem. On the opposite road, the leader who was thrown out just now stood up staggeringly, and saw that all the younger brothers fell to the ground, with an extremely gloomy expression. Damn bitch. He shook his splitting head, and locked on to the scarlet figure whose back was facing him. Immediately, he took out a special lightning grenade from his arms, pressed the start button, and the grenade charged instantly. Buzz. This grenade from the Stark group has a small explosion range, but the lightning it bursts out is 1,000 volts of electricity. Far superior to high-voltage cables. However, just as the leader was about to throw the grenade out, a black hand behind him firmly grasped his hand holding the grenade tightly. Hiss. The leader turned his head to look, and his heart suddenly tightened. I saw a few figures in black clothes standing behind me like black shadows, looking at him with cold eyes. Open. The leader struggled, trying to drop the grenade. But those men in black stared at him coldly, not moving at all. Boom. Next second. The moment the grenade exploded, thousands of volts of lightning gushed out and spread to the leader's body. Ah! He screamed in pain, and just before his eyes went dark, he suddenly saw the Oriental man who was leaning against the window on the back seat of the bus staring at him. Wanda heard the heart-piercing screams, and turned around to see several people in ancient black clothes, surrounding a charred corpse. Seeing her, the man in black turned around and walked into the shadow of the street corner, blending with the shadow and disappearing. Another member of the Shadow Organization? She said in surprise. Witch, are you all right? At this time Li Zi got out of the car, looked around at the robbers lying on the ground, stepped forward and pinched the witch's tender cheek. Witch, you are amazing. They are just a few ordinary people, they can't hurt me. As she spoke, Wanda thought of the men in black she saw just now. Did you see those men in black just now? They seemed to be members of the Black Shadow Organization. She was a little confused, because the person in the ancient black clothes just now looked different from the previous members of the organization. This time it was a few tall, thin guys with sharp feet. I see, it seems to be. Li Zi touched his nose guiltily, but those were actually members of the Shadow Corps. The boss insulted Wanda, and he couldn't help but let the Sombra do it. He admits it might be a bit naive, but as a man he can't stand his own woman being insulted and teased. The scope of activities of the Sombra organization is very large, and there are many types. Wanda next to him didn't see anything strange in him, but frowned and began to reason seriously. The Sombra organization may be in a different area, with different types of troops. The ones I met in Venice and Westview Town before were all different. One class. Witch, your analysis makes sense. Li Zi patted his head. Why didn't he expect to have such an explanation? A truly powerful organization is to cover the whole world. Different regions, and arms can naturally be different. As long as the black shadows don't appear at the same time, it's hard for anyone to suspect him. No, he admitted it himself yesterday. The witch didn't believe it either. Drop. At this moment, the police car finally arrived at the scene, and there were onlookers nearby who called the police. Definitely the police had already been chasing this group of people before. It's just that they temporarily escaped the pursuit, and then tried to hijack a carload of hostages and escape from the city as a cover. Didn't expect to meet Wanda. In the end, because Wanda has the identity of an Avenger, the police simply asked a few questions and did not make a record. So the two quickly headed to the train station and caught the train to the vicinity of Westview Town. Taking the train together is a good experience for couples. There are many things you can do in the scenery along the way and in the private box. But Li Zi and Wanda didn't do anything excessive. At the moment the witch is sleeping on the table, and it's easy to feel tired after a day of driving. Wanda didn't wake up in a daze until she almost reached the terminal. Li, what are you doing? Wanda stretched her waist and glanced at Li Zi who was flipping through her phone. I'm looking to see when those clothes arrive. Li Zi replied unabashedly. Where are the clothes? How can they arrive so fast? We just bought them yesterday. Seeing that this guy has been thinking about those revealing clothes, Wanda couldn't help but blushed, gritted her teeth and said. Then my reward is gone again. Li Zi remembered what the witch said before going to bed yesterday, and immediately hugged her and questioned her. You let go first. Wanda struggled speechlessly. Don't let go. Feeling the soft woman in his arms, Li Zi was reluctant to let go. Why don't we go to the store and buy a few? They may also be sold on the street. What? What are you talking about? Why would someone sell this kind of thing on the street? Even if there was, I wouldn't buy it. Wanda was ashamed and angry. She was thin-skinned and thought of going offline to buy, and with Li Zi's personality, she would probably buy a lot at once. Don't even think about knowing what people around you think of them, just stay where you are. Who says no? Some people like to go to the woods to play games. Li Zi said seriously. Ah. What game? When Wanda heard something new, she had never heard of it before, and suddenly became interested and curious. Ahem, cough, nothing. Li Zi coughed a few times in embarrassment. I don't know why he didn't say such things casually before, but recently after getting along with the witch, he always blurted out. He swears he never thought of doing such a thing. It's definitely not a good thing. Wanda noticed his expression and pursed her lips. Everyone, you are about to arrive in Zijing Town. Please get off in an orderly manner. At this time, a reminder came from the train radio, and then the train gradually slowed down, and the scenery outside the window became familiar. Finally reached. Li Zi looked at the familiar scene, opened the window and took a deep breath of fresh air. Went out for a few laps and finally came back. The train stopped. Let's go, I'm going back to take a shower, I'm so dirty. Narration. Wanda can't wait to pull him out of the car. The two returned to the community apartment in a short time by taxi. The corridor on the top floor. Li, see me later and I'm going to sleep after taking a shower. Wanda opened the door with tiredness on her face, not forgetting to turn her head and say something to Li Zi. Aren't you coming to live with me? The bed in my room is quite big. Li Zi has gotten used to falling asleep with the witch's embrace these days, so she doesn't want to lie alone in the cold bedroom tonight. Wanda pretended to be undecided about hesitation, but seeing Li Zi across the way who looked like a widow who was alone in the vacant room, she couldn't help laughing. Okay. I'll move in later, I'll take a shower first. Okay. Seeing that the witch agreed, Li Zi was in a good mood. It just so happened that he took advantage of this time to do something. Wait until Wanda enters the house. After packing up his luggage, he went to Agatha's room, looked around the cold living room, and said to himself, Agatha, where did you put the Book of Darkness? The words fell. Li Zi closed his eyes slightly, his body exuded golden light and gathered magic runes. Next second. Whoosh. A hole appeared on the blank wall in front of him. He opened his eyes and saw the familiar cave, and walked in without any hesitation. In the original book, Agatha hid the Book of Darkness in an underground cave. After walking in, as expected, on an altar in the cave, there is a magic book that exudes black aura. The black aura seems to contain evil spirits, and sometimes there are bursts of roars. This is the Book of Darkness. It comes from the black magic spell written by the ancient god Sathorn and recorded in the book. If you understand it thoroughly, you can become a god-like existence in all dimensions. In the dark cave surrounded by vine runes, the magic book was placed on the central platform, exuding bursts of evil black aura, accompanied by the heart-piercing screams of evil spirits. Its presence keeps the cave temperature cold. Sure enough, it's the Book of Darkness. I don't know where the old witch got it from. Li Zi pondered and walked towards the location of the magic book. After approaching, you can clearly feel a cold air blowing on your face, and the temperature around your body drops sharply, which is due to the evil cold air emanating from the magic book. Cracks appeared on the bottom of the high platform because it carried magic books all the year round. This thing is simply a mobile refrigeration machine, no wonder the witch lost weight in the original book. Li Zi picked up the dark book and flipped through it. Feeling the cold book, he couldn't help complaining. Practicing with the magic book every day, can you not lose weight if the cold air erodes your body? He reckoned that he would have to get a duplicate version of the Dark God book, so that when he was studying for Wanda, he would not be corroded by the cold. By the way, delete the original content and some unnecessary evil parts. Legend has it that when Sathorn recorded the spells, he also recorded his own evil deeds. The evil deeds recorded by a generation of ancient gods are only in the form of writing, and they will affect the readers. Even after using the black magic in the book, many people will sacrifice their souls to the ancient god Sathorn. In the original book, the witch learned together with the evil part, which led to her becoming obsessed and became a female devil who killed anyone she saw. Li Zi admitted that such a witch has a special flavor and is very cool. But he still likes the witch who is sweet and sweet now. No wonder the witch will improve so quickly after learning it. Li Zi was fascinated after reading for a while. As a magician, he couldn't resist all kinds of powerful spells in the dark book. What's more, there are many spells that can be cast across multi-universes. For example, in Doctor Strange 2, the dream walk used by Wanda can capture her peers in the multi-universe, manipulate the physical body occupying the trial body for her own use. Call. After 10 minutes, he quickly read the whole book in one breath. The powerful memory brought by creating magic made him remember everything in the book easily after reading it once. A good book is a good book, but it is better for witches not to learn some content. Li Zi looked at the dark divine book in his hand. It's not that he is worried that the witch's soul will be sacrificed, the chaos force in the witch's body is not yet weak to that point. I'm just worried that some dark magic will affect the witch's mind. Thinking about it, he opened his hand and wrapped it around the book with golden light. Next second, an identical dark god book appeared on the left hand, and the reprinted version did not emit black aura, which looked like an ancient collection. Perfect. Li Zi flipped through a few pages, and after confirming that there was no problem with the content, he put it away with satisfaction. Li? Where are you? At this time, there was a call from outside the cave. I'm tidying up Agatha's room, wait for me. Hear a familiar voice. Li Zi knew it was Wanda without thinking too much. He quickly put away the original Book of Darkness and ran out of the cave. Hide the cave until the door opens. Click. What are you doing? Wanda opened the door and poked her head in, glanced at the cold room, and found that the living room was very tidy, and many things were placed in their original places. She suddenly widened her eyes and said in surprise, "My God, doesn't Agatha usually use these furniture? Maybe a medieval witch, and a little out of date." Li Zi took the witch's soft white hand and joked, "It's not like you, who is obviously a witch but acts like a housegirl, watching movies every night and only getting up at noon the next day. I'm not a witch, and I don't even know magic." Wanda is speechless. She is obviously a superpower. Why does she always like to call herself a witch? Is this also a hobby? How can there be so many weird tastes in the world? First legs and feet, then socks, and some strange clothes. Before getting along with Li Zi, she didn't know that she had so much knowledge in that area, and she was so dirty. "Didn't you take a shower? Why so fast?" Li Zi leaned closer and smelled the faint fragrance, and felt an inexplicable urge to hug her. "After washing, go and help me unload my luggage, I'm going to move to your room." Wanda pushed and pushed him. It's very cold just after taking a shower in autumn, so she has to go back to the house and turn on the heating. "You don't have to be so hungry, witch." An ambiguous arc was drawn at the corner of Li Zi's mouth, and he reached out and pinched her nose. "No more nonsense, I'll bite you to death." Wanda blushed when she heard this sentence. Zhang Yunwu opened her mouth and bit Li Zi's arm, but just rubbed it symbolically. However, the next second, she was picked up sideways and ran upstairs. "Don't worry, witch, I'll take you back here." Li Zi smiled and strode upstairs with her in his arms. "Put me down." Wanda felt her body hanging in the air, her hands wrapped tightly around his neck, and her voice became soft. She admitted that princess hugs are always lethal to women, especially being hugged by someone she likes. Attached to the muscular figure, through the thin casual clothes, you can clearly feel Li Zi's sharp abdominal muscles. People can't help but want to get closer. "You hold on so tightly, do you want me to let you go, or not?" Li Zi lowered his head, clearly feeling the soft woman in his arms approaching constantly, and teased with a smile. "Put it down quickly." Wanda met his gaze, and because they were hugged and their faces were very close, the hot breath they exhaled when they spoke hit each other. Getting up close makes the atmosphere weird. The witch who came back to her senses quickly looked away, blushing and said, "I'm very heavy, I'm afraid you won't be able to carry it." "Witch, are you questioning a man's physical ability?" When Li Zi heard this, his complexion suddenly became dark. Originally, she didn't intend to tease her anymore, but the witch actually underestimated him, which was simply insulting his dignity. "Hey, what are you doing?" Wanda noticed the expression in his eyes, and felt the man's hand tighten again. Immediately noticed something was wrong. "Prove my own ability." After saying that, Li Zi embraced the warm and fragrant nephrite in his arms, and lowered his head to her lips. Wanda felt the foreign object breaking into her mouth, her pupils constricted suddenly, her eyes widened in panic. "This is the stairwell, don't mess around." 10 minutes later. Suite 1002. Damn Li. Wanda touched her moist and slightly swollen lips, lying on the soft sofa with a blushing face. The naive guy actually hugged himself and kissed him in the stairwell for 10 minutes. Was he trying to take the opportunity to suck himself dry? Thinking back to the incident just now, the witch wished to stuff her head into the gap of the sofa. What a shame. Click. "Witch, I have brought all your things here." At this time, the culprit Li Zi walked in pushing several boxes. "Don't call me a witch. You pervert, do you have any special hobbies?" Wanda shouted in embarrassment. "Witch is a pet name, you want to dirty it." Li Zi shrugged and said he was innocent, he really didn't have other thoughts. Besides, Wanda will be the most powerful witch on Earth in the future. She originally has her own bug. "Believe in you, there will be ghosts, hurry up and take a bath." Wanda gave him a blank stare, and now every word this hateful man said, "I don't believe it is pure." "Alright, I'll wash Shang Shang to accompany you." Li Zi walked towards the bathroom with a smile. The prodigal son. Wanda blushed, angrily cursing out the few Chinese words she knew. I really have the illusion of being in a wolf's den, it's still a satyr's den. Wait for the sound of flushing in the bathroom. Wanda looked away, looked at the laptop on the table, tried to turn it on and found that there was no password. She glanced at the bathroom where the water was rushing, quietly picked up the computer, opened the browser, and entered a line of words in the search box. What kind of quirk is a man who always likes to call himself a witch and likes feet and feet? Search content. Wanda slid down and looked all the way down, her expression gradually becoming weird. It's like opening a door to a new world. Her earlobes also gradually turned red, and her whole figure looked like a cooked lobster. I didn't notice the rapid passage of time at all. In the bathroom. Call. Li Zi had already taken a shower, dried her hair with a hairdryer, opened the bathroom door and went out. Her gaze just met the witch lying on the sofa. Her long, milk-white legs were dangling in the air, and her pink toes looked even more translucent after taking a bath. Like a carved work of art. People can't move their eyes. Wanda, lying on the sofa, noticed someone behind her, turned her head and met Li Zi's fiery gaze. This man was admiring her legs and feet. She recalled what she found just now, sat up cross-legged immediately, and asked, Li, what are you looking at? Look at you. Seeing that the benefits were gone, Li Zi was reluctant to open them. Abnormal. Wanda narrowed her beautiful eyes and said fiercely. Witch, did you see something? Li Zi noticed the laptop in the witch's arms. He glanced at the browser interface from the corner of his eye, and immediately guessed what the woman must have searched on the internet. Otherwise, in the past, she definitely wouldn't call herself a pervert. Bah. I am a decent person, not a pervert. Don't come here. Wanda glanced at the search content and immediately covered the screen. Because after searching for the first question before, she saw many other keywords on the forum. Out of curiosity, I searched. So now the historical records of the top 200 historical records are no longer the things that were searched before. Now all the searches are SM. Role-playing, how to play stockings, how to play sex. She swore it was just out of curiosity, but if it wasn't for the search, she wouldn't even know that Li Zi had these things in her head. It's too evil. Backquote, your reaction made me interested. Seeing the witch's reaction, Li Zi formed a smirk on the corner of his mouth, and strode over to grab the laptop. Do not come. Wanda saw the tall Li Zi striding over. She immediately jumped off the sofa, stepping on the cold floor with her bare feet. Run to the bedroom. Witch, have you learned to be bad secretly? Seeing her reaction, Li Zi already thought of what Chi-Chi, his own witch, should have seen on the internet. Weird stuff. Otherwise, it would not be this reaction. Boom. No. Wanda didn't give him a chance at all, and ran into the room yelling. After closing and locking the door with his backhand, he sat down on the ground with a sigh of relief, panting while watching the shameful content on the screen. If these contents are seen by Li Zi, he will definitely be more unscrupulous in the future. You can think of it without thinking too much. The hateful man will definitely say, little witch, so you like this kind of thing too? I will satisfy you. Bang bang bang. Open the door quickly. Li Zi's voice came from outside the door. No, wait until I finish deleting. Wanda raised her snow-white neck and shouted towards the door. Anyway, he must have guessed what shame he was searching for. But without evidence, what can you do to me? I deleted them all in one go. Open the door quickly. Wanda ignored the voice outside the door, and lowered her head to take a final look at the shameful search content. Frowning slightly in disgust, he quickly opened the history and pressed the clear button. Swish. In 1 second, the original 200 historical records were instantly cleared. Call. Looking at the blank interface, the witch let out a satisfied smile on her pretty face and let out a sigh of relief. Sure enough, I heard that the thing that a man will do before he dies is to delete his browsing history. It turned out to be this feeling. There was nothing in the record, and I felt innocent in an instant. After a while, she stood up and opened the door brazenly, raised a confident smile, and handed the computer over. Okay, return it to you. What bad things did you do with my computer? When Li Zi took the computer, he picked her up and took her to the sofa. Nothing. Wanda glanced at the man to open the browser, shook her head and said. Really? Give you another chance. Li Zi's eyes are as deep as black emeralds, looking at her as if he has seen through everything. Goo. No. Wanda had a feeling of being seen through, but she still shook her head firmly. I kept repeating it in my heart. Anyway, all the browsing records were deleted. Even if he refused to admit it, he found evidence. Children who lie will be punished, Li Zi said with a smile. No, nothing, and what can I do with your computer? Wanda looked away, lowered her head and fiddled with her crystal clear toes as if nothing had happened. Then I'll restore the history to see. Li Zi looked at the appearance of the witch and smiled slightly, and directly entered the background of the account. He has logged into the account before, and the historical records will be uploaded to the cloud in real time, in order to prevent users from deleting records by mistake. It is convenient for users to retrieve the records. What? When Wanda heard this, she immediately looked at the screen. At the moment Li Zi had already logged into her account and clicked on Restore History. It's over. Simple witches don't know the dangers of the world, and there is such a thing as data recovery in the world. Her wise words will be ruined here. Don't look. Wanda panicked completely, blushing and frantically covering the screen. Unfortunately it was too late. I saw the browser record that was already blank, and pressed the OK button with Li Zi's fingertips. Swish. The blank interface is instantly occupied by rows of unsightly search records, and each piece of content can make people imagine. Instantly. The air in the living room fell into silence, and the atmosphere gradually became weird. Under the radiance of yellowish light, the flickering white light of the computer screen presents the history interface of the browser. Lines of historical records emerged one after another on the blank interface, like a diary of shame in life. It made the witch feel dizzy for a while. It's all over, all the records have been restored. What a shame. Why did no one tell her that there is a recovery function? If she knew it, she should have uninstalled the software directly. You actually watch this kind of stuff? Li Zi was slightly taken aback after seeing the first item clearly. Is it because his eyes are dazzled? He seems to see the word interest. Wanda next to her leaned over to see the unsightly words. She blushed and gritted her teeth and shouted, "Don't look, don't look." As she said that, she rushed over with flailing claws, trying to snatch the notebook in front of Li Zi. Even if she dies today, she will clear all the records. No, a bad boy has to admit that he has done something wrong. Let me see. What else did you check? Li Zi turned his back to block the witch, and said triumphantly. After finally catching the witch's handle, how could it be easily let go? You still want to watch? Wanda hugged Li Zi tightly from behind like a kitten with fried hair when she heard it. For a moment, she really felt that the whole world collapsed. If this hateful man reads those records, he will have no face to get along with him in the future. Why can you see it, but I can't? Li Zi felt the soft body of the witch's fragrance, and hugged him tightly. He smelled the fragrance, and suddenly his mouth became dry. I don't need to watch it, but you have to promise me one condition. What conditions? The innocent Wanda heard that she could discuss it, and immediately wrapped her snow-white hands around his neck and asked. Reward me. Li Zi pointed to his mouth. You haven't taken the initiative once. Active and passive in this kind of thing are completely two kinds of feelings. He was always active before, and the shy witch couldn't accept active tongue-kissing at all. Don't want. Sure enough, Wanda refused. I feel shy partly, and more partly feel that Li Zi is like an old fox. How could I delete those contents so easily? Definitely another trap. You sure? Little witch, you seem to have searched 200 items, and the history records are full. Li Zi slides the mouse. All the way to the end, more content is displayed. He looked at the things he searched, and was extremely surprised. I didn't expect it. I really didn't realize that my witch is a hooligan. I didn't. No, you listen to me explain. Wanda stammered anxiously, went around, and suddenly remembered that she seemed to be able to explain. An explanation is a cover-up, and a cover-up is the truth. Li Zi turned his head away, not wanting to hear it at all. Because he knew that witches were not that kind of superficial women. The performance of the witches in the original book is very silent, introverted and sensitive to external affairs, and she is a good model of a good girl in an ordinary family. Besides, a woman who feels ashamed to eat loudly at a restaurant. How could it be such a person? But Li Zi finally seized the opportunity, and it is impossible to let the witch go easily. You. Wanda was so angry that she swallowed all the words she wanted to explain, and sat beside her with her legs folded and her hands wrapped around her knees in annoyance. Witch. Don't you really think about it? Seeing that she was silent, Li Zi took the initiative to draw a smile on the corner of her mouth. If you want to keep your word, you must delete it, and it can't be restored. Wanda met the man's mean smile, gritted her teeth and decided to trust him once. If it really doesn't work, it will be directly destroyed by the computer. At worst, buy a new one and compensate him. Thinking, she closed her eyes and leaned forward slightly. Soft lips touched together. As soon as she touched it, she immediately wanted to back away, but a thick hand had already wrapped around the slender willow waist, and she suddenly pulled it forward. Next second. The feeling of familiarity is overwhelming. Woo. Wanda's eyes were slightly dazed, and her pupils constricted. Come again. Second time today. She wanted to break free, but one hand was firmly locked, and her waist was grabbed by a big hand, so she couldn't move back at all. The only hand that can move can only support the man's chest. Don't let yourself fall. Woo. Due to the height difference between the two, Wanda was forced to raise her snow-white swan neck to agree. She really wanted to use origin magic power to lift the hateful Li Zi away, but she was worried about hurting him. In the end, I can only fall into tenderness, but Li Zi didn't go too far this time, and let go of her hand after a while. Wanda's body went limp, and she slumped on the soft sofa and panted heavily. On the side, Li Zi propped his chin with one hand, admiring the witch, wearing thin pajamas, outlining a perfect body curve. Reveals the ultimate sexy charm. Having just been pampered, the witch's earlobes are now red, and people can't help but want to reach out and flick her. In particular, she was paralyzed on the sofa and breathed heavily, giving people the illusion of desire and dissatisfaction. In fact, Wanda was reminiscing about the feeling just now. She obviously felt shy, but she was very comfortable. She enjoyed that moment very much. Just as she was thinking, when she met Li Zi's gaze, she felt a little guilty, and quickly said, "What are you looking at? Quickly delete the history. Didn't Yuhua Shah often say that a gentleman is hard to chase after a word, and a person must be honest, otherwise I..." Wanda thought for a while, trying to find some nasty words. But they all felt that it was too vicious and couldn't bear to say it, so they held back for a long time and squeezed out a sentence, "Otherwise I will ignore you for half a month." Well, a gentleman never breaks his promise. Li Zi nodded without intending to break his promise, reopened the history of the browser, slid to the bottom, and couldn't help laughing. In fact, he had already noticed the earliest search record. What kind of weirdness is it for a man who always likes to call himself a witch, and likes feet and feet? Sure enough, I misunderstood myself. The witch is so cute, and I went to the internet to search for answers. Why are you laughing? Wanda saw the smile on the corner of his mouth, thinking that this guy was browsing his own records, and after leaning over, the interface had been emptied. I am a gentleman and I never break my promise. Li Zi frowned slightly and smiled at her. Delete it, what are you laughing at? Wanda touched her hot earlobe and sat down on the soft sofa. This hateful man didn't know how alluring that smile was just now. Thinking about it, she couldn't help but glanced at Li Zi quietly again. I had been tossing and browsing the records with him before, only now did I realize how handsome the man in front of the computer is. The light from the screen reflected on the sharpened facial features, making Li Zi's already handsome face more three-dimensional. Sword eyebrows and star eyes, clear outline, straight nose, thin lips tightly pursed, deep and wise eyes. The long and slender fingers with well-defined joints kept tapping on the keyboard. The more Wanda looks at it, the more she thinks she looks good and lives longer. This man gave her the feeling that she was naturally seductive. Anyway, she was attracted to him not long after contacting him. Just when she was fascinated, Li Zi raised her head slowly, raised her brows lightly and said, "Witch, you are becoming more and more unscrupulous. Who's looking at you?" "I'm in a daze." Wanda looked away, but her hot face and hot pink earlobes couldn't lie. Duplicity. Li Zi pinched her face. "I need to go to the bathroom." Wanda ran to the bathroom in embarrassment. She blushed again in disappointment. Into the bathroom. She looked at the sparkling beautiful eyes in the mirror, lowered her head and washed her face vigorously. Her hot face was much better. Li also has the nerve to say that he is the real soul stirring. Wanda was speechless. She had never seen a man who was more stalking and seductive than a woman, and she was thinking of ways to squeeze herself dry every day. If I cross the line in the future, I dare not imagine what kind of life I will live. Waited half a minute. She didn't take a deep breath until her earlobes were not so red, pushed open the door and walked out. Wanda sat back to her original position on the sofa, and saw Li Zi lazily leaning on the sofa, flipping through a book wrapped in parchment. And the book exudes an ancient atmosphere, giving her an urge to read it. Wanda couldn't help asking curiously, "What are you looking at?" "The book I found on Agatha's shelf, but the text on it is a bit obscure, and I'm trying to understand it." Li Zi closed the book and held it up to show her the cover. The title of the book is written in ancient Egyptian characters, giving people a mysterious feeling. "You got it from Agatha." Wanda was immediately interested, and she recognized the words at a glance. She had learned this script a few months ago when she went to Dr. Strange, and she learned it in a few hours. Also shocked Dr. Strange Stephen. Stephen also teased that she is a magical wizard. If she had come a few years earlier, Sorcerer Supreme might not have chosen herself. "Show me." Wanda couldn't wait. She wondered what exactly Agatha learned to become a magic necromancer. "Witch, you have been taught a lesson." Li Zi handed the book out. "The Book of Darkness." Wanda took it and read out the title of the book above. "That's right. This book is the Book of Darkness." Li Zi thought of this way just now, and handed the book directly to the witch without receiving any suspicion. In addition, what surprised him was that the forged ancient aura on this copy of the Dark Divine Book was so realistic that it fooled Wanda. You must know that witches can possess origin magic power and telepathy ability. It seems that creating magic has brought him too many surprises. I am afraid that even Sithorn, the author of the Dark God Book, will not be able to distinguish the true from the false through the breath. Li, this is a magic book, and the contents in it seem to be very powerful. Wanda flipped through it a few times, and the origin magic power in her body was touched, and she fell into it all at once, and the spell in the book made her unable to move her eyes. Agatha's ability doesn't look weak, and the magician is definitely not bad either. Li Zi leaned over, looked at it and said slowly. Not only that, the Dark God Book can make you a little witch grow into a peerless great witch. Although it is still very big now. Ahem, digressing. When the time is right, the two of them seem to be able to take a multi-universe trip. Thinking of this, Li Zi, who was originally fun, suddenly found it interesting. The multi-universe is the biggest charm of Marvel. Different Avengers in different universes, Tony Stark. It's fun to think about it. This magic book may allow me to better control the origin magic power in my body. Wanda didn't notice the light in Li Zi's eyes and nodded. She didn't expect Agatha. I lied to myself, but left a magic book, if the content in the book can help me master Chaos Force. Good news for her. Because in recent years, Wanda often feels that origin magic power is getting out of control, and sometimes she is really worried that when she breaks down emotionally, she will cause irreparable damage. It seems that Agatha's inheritance is still useful. Li Zi stretched, leaned lazily on the sofa and yawned. Li, don't mention this name, it's unlucky. As Wanda said, she continued to look at the contents of the book, with a regretful expression on her face, but I didn't read all the words. Didn't you learn it? Li Zi wondered. I have, but Stephen didn't finish teaching at that time. After he taught the first chapter, his face suddenly became a little ugly, and he said that he would retreat to study ancient books, so I left directly. Wanda recalls that she didn't take it very seriously. I simply feel that Stephen is too busy. After all, doctors are not always nervous, and they will leave halfway as soon as they think of a certain problem. No matter what the occasion. I see. Li Zi said so. In his heart, he complained that Stephen was probably halfway through teaching. Then I had a perception that certain events in the future might be related to witches, so I didn't continue to teach, maybe because I was worried that something would happen. In fact, this is exactly the case. In the original book, Wanda has grown into a murderous female devil. But now the appearance of Li Zi has put an end to that ending, and has turned the witch into a good girl. Then he looked at the witch with a tangled face, glanced at the magic book, and said slowly, that word means soul and undead. What? Wanda was slightly stunned, and then she reacted in surprise and said, do you understand? Well, I have studied ancient Egyptian. Li Zi said unhurriedly. In fact, he has never learned it, but he has the power characteristic of creating magic. I learned it in 10 seconds when I read the original version before, otherwise I would not be fascinated by it. After all, if you don't understand it, how can you be fascinated by it? Li, you are amazing, teach me quickly. Wanda's face was full of surprise, and she handed the book to him. No problem. This sentence is soul and necromancer, saying. Li Zi was willing to give lectures to witches, so he took the book and started to read. The first one is an ordinary basic technique, which can condense magical energy and attack the soul of living beings. The attack method is really black magic. Powerful people use it to gather and disperse the souls of living beings. But it's far worse than Li Zi's Avada Kedavra. Wanda was obviously in a better mood than before, leaning on Li Zi's shoulder to read the book of the Dark God together. Because she discovered that her man is far better than she imagined, even without super abilities, he is still full of talent. However, at this moment, she saw an unforgettable scene. I saw a mass of black aura condensed on Li Zi's hand, exuding bursts of evil hissing, as if it could tear people's souls apart at any time. Rao is that the surrounding air is gradually getting colder. Spirits and souls gather and disperse. Li Zi focused on the Dark Divine Book, not noticing the slightest change in his hand. He continued to chant the spell in the book, and the black aura gathered on the left hand is also intensifying. The emitted airflow once distorted the air. Buzz. The mass of black aura in his hand intensified, and the air around him became distorted and broken, causing the tabletop items in front of him to tremble. All of a sudden, the lights flickered violently. Wanda next to her was dazed with beautiful eyes, pointing at Li Zi's left hand exuding black aura, and said with a trembling tone. What? Hearing the sound, Li Zi looked to his left hand. In fact, When the lights were flickering just now, he sensed something was wrong, and there was a strange breath wrapped around his hands. What's going on? How is it possible? When he raised his hand and saw the mass of black aura on his left hand, his pupils constricted suddenly, and his brain suddenly became a little confused. What's the situation? Isn't he reading the Book of the Dark God, and so on? Li Zi shook the black aura's left hand. The aura on it obviously came from the Dark Divine Book. He realized that he seemed to have read the spell in the Dark Book, no wonder the magical power was subconsciously activated. But isn't this the Dark God Book? He just read it for the second time, and the command spell actually succeeded the first time? Lao Su is also endowed with extraordinary abilities? No, it's not a question of ability. The problem is that I used magic in front of Wanda, and there is no way to escape it. It suddenly made him feel dizzy. Now how to explain? Although she had already admitted to the witch last night that she was a magician, she didn't believe it at the time, and she didn't say anything further. It's like not acknowledging it. Wanda, you listen to me explain. Li Zi took a deep breath, and decided to explain a pair of Jin Nixi Gong or. But as soon as he turned his head, he greeted Wanda, who was hugging him. Her clear eyes were like jewels full of surprises. Li, you are a magic genius. Li Zi was stunned for a moment, feeling the soft and fragrant witch in her arms, and said in astonishment, aren't you angry? My boyfriend is a magic genius, both civil and military, why am I angry? Hear this. Wanda in her arms raised her head, exposing her delicate snow-white collarbone, and asked in doubt. Li Zi was at a loss for words. I forgot, this is your first encounter with magic. Wanda patted her head, sat up straight and pulled Li Zi over to face each other. She rubbed Black Aura's left hand, which had already dissipated, and explained softly. When you were chanting the incantation just now, you comprehended the magic incantation, that's why that happened. Do you think I have an extraordinary ability and have learned the magic of the Dark Divine Book? Li Zi suddenly realized that he understood. Before, he was thinking about how to explain it, but the witch actually just thought that he had extraordinary abilities. Has a very high ability in magic. But why didn't the system give any hints? Now the witch is equivalent to directly exposing him. It stands to reason that it should be the same as Agatha's situation before. In the end, is which part of the problem? Could it be because the Dark God Book didn't come from the system? Isn't it? You just read it once and learned it, and I don't have the slightest idea now. Wanda looked at him speechlessly, and asked, Li, you didn't respond at all. No, I just feel a little weird. Li Zi also found that his reaction was a little too flat, so he couldn't help coughing lightly. He didn't react flatly, but was startled by a feint. I thought it was going to be exposed, but I had already thought of hundreds of excuses and explanations in my mind, and I also thought of various ways to make the witch happy. The result was a false alarm. But it's also a good thing, at least he doesn't want to face Shira Field right now. Li, from now on your life will no longer be ordinary. Wanda didn't notice his emotion. A smile was raised at the corner of her mouth, carved like a knife. She smiled happily. She was really happy for Li Zi from the bottom of her heart. Then you can help me ask the black marinated egg, can I join the Avengers? Li Zi laughed teasingly. Farewell, the Avengers of today are not the Avengers of the past. Wanda shook her head with a complex expression, she understood deeply. I'm just kidding. Let's continue to study the Dark God Book. Li Zi rubbed her head and continued to turn the next page. He was just kidding, it's definitely not possible to join the Avengers. The current Avengers organization is almost completely controlled by the government. The previous Avengers alliance was bad before the 4-Day War. Judging from Guo Wuxing's attitude towards the Avengers, it is enough to see that the government now has the right to directly intervene in the Avengers. Don't turn the page yet. Seeing this, Wanda pressed the big hand that turned the page, and gave him a supercilious look. I'm not as evil as you. I haven't learned the first chapter yet. Let me read it a few more times first. Read it a few more times. Li Zi frowned slightly, and there seemed to be a black line across the top of his head. He could imagine that if Stephen heard what the witch said, his worldview would be shattered. And complained with a British accent, two freaks. I seem to have learned it too. For a moment, Wanda shook his left hand in surprise, and then a group of black aura mixed with scarlet light emerged. The black aura mixed with scarlet light was filled with bursts of power, the surrounding air was distorted and broken, and the air temperature dropped a lot suddenly. As expected of my witch. Li Zi pinched her cheeks as a reward, and the witch's white and greasy cheeks were extremely smooth when pinched. It's hard to put it down. Quickly read the next page. I found this spellbook to be a perfect match for origin magic power. Wanda reminisces about the wonder brought by the magic spell just now, and the spell unexpectedly matches the origin magic power in her body. The two complement each other and maximize their strength, as if they were prepared for her. Perhaps this is why Agatha wants to snatch the origin magic power. Li Zi reminded. She came for origin magic power, in order to become stronger by practicing the Dark God book. When Wanda heard this, she immediately thought of it. If you think about it this way, Agatha's intention to snatch the origin magic power is very obvious. Thinking of this, she seemed to be aware of it, and looked at the scarlet light in her palm. For the first time, I felt how powerful my power is, and it seems that many people want to get it. Wanda, you will become the most powerful witch in the world. Seeing her own witch one, Li Zi finally realized how powerful she is, and immediately felt very relieved. From now on, I will rely on you. HMPH, Li, your ability is no worse than mine. When Wanda heard the encouragement from the person she liked, she felt warm in her heart. Look at what the second article is about. Aha. Seeing that it was still early and the witch was so interested, Li Zi continued to turn to the next page. The content of the second pass is obviously much more difficult than the first one. After all, it is the Book of the Dark God written by Sathorn, and the subsequent content will only become more and more difficult, and the abilities of each chapter will become more and more weird. Those are spells created by the terrifying thinking of the ancient gods. However, Li Zi learned it completely after just scanning it once. Li, you are the real monster. Wanda was very sure that Li Zi was definitely learning the Dark God book for the first time, and there was no aura about the Dark God book in his body. She was completely fascinated by the man in front of her. There is no woman who does not like a good man. What's more, it's someone you like. Witch reading, what are you reading? Li Zi reached out and knocked her on the head, and said with a serious face, students who are disobedient will be punished. You. Wanda met his gaze, inexplicably remembering what she had searched before. Teacher and student. It seems that the current situation is too similar to that forum post. The teacher holding the magic book is teaching a. Pooh. Wanda shook her head, thinking about it again. How strange it is for Li Zi, now her mind is not clean. What's wrong with you? Li Zi was a little puzzled, as if he hadn't done anything. Now I just want to teach the witch well so that she can grow up quickly. After all, one thing is another thing, and there will be opportunities for that kind of thing in the future. Nothing. Wanda realized that she seemed to have misunderstood him. This man seemed to really just want to study hard. Immediately ashamed of the dirty behavior in his heart, he blushed and lowered his head to read the magic book. Maybe it was a nasty idea that just came to me inadvertently. It made her a bit unable to learn, and she stared at Mo in a daze for a long time. Witch, are you distracted? Li Zi perceived her mood swings and couldn't help reminding her. No. No, Wanda shook her head. It's actually very simple, Wanda, you have to remember that your greatest advantage is origin magic power, which is why Agatha wants to snatch it. Li Zi saw her struggle, and continued to say, so you have to develop your own advantages to the maximum. Spells are just a support for you. You have to understand that now you are not practicing the Dark God book, but cultivating origin magic power. As long as you keep making the origin magic power in your body stronger, you will be truly powerful, and the Dark Divine book is an auxiliary after all. He sees that Wanda may not really realize that origin magic power looks at the entire universe. Even multi-universe, what a terrifying energy. If one can cultivate to the extreme, breaking through the single universe is only a matter of time. Practice origin magic power. Why didn't I think so? After Wanda listened, she looked at Li Zi with light in her eyes and even more surprise. Li, you are really amazing. Li Zi, who was exposed to magic for the first time, unexpectedly had such a deep comprehension. He even understood origin magic power better than himself. I used to read fantasy novels. Li Zi touched his nose guiltily and jokingly made an excuse. Now I know how to practice. Fortunately, the pure Wanda didn't think too much. After the doubts in her heart were solved, she continued to read the magic book and started studying. Time passed quickly. More than an hour later, Wanda, who was sitting cross-legged on a chair, slowly opened her eyes and a scarlet gleam flashed through her eyes, making her fair and pretty face look alluring and charming. Call, she parted her red lips lightly, exhaling blue air lightly. How did you learn it? Li Zi pinched the witch's milky face and asked. Aha. Wanda nodded confidently. Then he raised his head and nodded on Li Zi's lips, your reward. That's all. Li Zi frowned slightly, pretending to be dissatisfied. When the clothes arrive, I'll make up for you, and I'm not ready yet. Wanda lowered her head with a blushing face, and responded with a voice like a mosquito. No sooner said than done, but should we go to bed? Li Zi came up and hugged the witch's slender willow waist, and looked at the clock on the wall. It's already 9:30. No, I want to keep studying. Wanda raised her eyebrows and said seriously. We will study together tomorrow, and I will accompany you then. Talking. Li Zi immediately picked up the witch, left the dark book and walked towards the bedroom. How could it be possible not to sleep? Wouldn't the welfare of her fragrant and soft pillow be gone? Li, let me go. Don't interfere with my study. The soft woman in her arms struggled with displeasure written on her face. I just said that the witch should study hard, but now she has to hug herself to sleep. Don't let go, you have to combine work and rest in order to learn well. Look, I'm not going to sleep too. Li Zi refused to let go. Carry people directly to the bedroom all the way, throw them on the bed, turn off the light and cover the quilt, and the day is complete. But you can learn it once, I can't learn it at all. Wanda was speechless. She kept praising her ability some time ago, but it turned out that this man was really talented. To be precise, he is a monster. No one can learn it at a glance, even Dr. Stephen John can't do it. Don't worry, you can learn it quickly with your ability. Under the quilt, Li Zi hugged her, buried her head on her shoulder and comforted her. But I have learned to protect you properly, otherwise there will definitely be people like Agatha appearing again in the future. If you don't have such good luck this time. With her back turned to him, Wanda whispered her worries in a low voice. On the surface, she was relieved, but in her heart she was very worried. After experiencing what happened to Agatha, she knew that such things would definitely happen in the future. When the time comes, Li Zi will definitely be the first victim. She can't imagine what will happen. Don't worry, didn't you say that I have extraordinary abilities? Maybe I will protect you in the future. Listen to the witch's words full of concern. Li Zi felt warm in his heart, and couldn't help but want to hug her tighter. And Wanda couldn't help her nose sore. She suddenly thought of the friends who fell one by one around her, those friends who died in the Great War, those friends who lost right in front of her. She was silent for a moment, then retorted in a low voice, "No, I will protect you from now on." Okay, good night. New York City. This bustling city is the heart of the country's economy. It carries most of the economic operations. At the moment, even though it is late at night, the city is still full of feasting and feasting. It is worthy of its other name, the city that never sleeps. The city that never sleeps will never turn off the lights. And at the moment, the basement of a building. You edit the content and send it to my mailbox, and you will get the money. The other end of the phone said again, "I hope you don't break your word." The one holding the mobile phone is a balding middle-aged man. He is hiding in the basement warehouse curry, sitting in front of the computer and watching the video on the screen. There is a ruthlessness between the brows, but also a little anxiety. "Wilhelm, you have no choice now, trust me, it's the only one that can help you. Are you trying to make Quentin Baker do nothing for nothing?" The voice came from the phone again. "Okay, it's a deal." Wilhelm nodded, thinking of the dead Quentin Mysterio. That's right, he is one of Quentin's main accomplices, and he helped in the scam of the century. And he is also the one who was abandoned by the Stark Group. After decisive phone call, Wilhelm turned on the video screen on the computer, and said in a cold tone, "Come on, the real name of K will go down in history. Let the world remember this superhero from the multi-universe." He grinned. At the moment, the video on the screen starts to play, and the screen is the perspective of the mysterious guest. He fell to the ground in pain, with horror written all over his face. "Spider-Man, he's going to kill me. And Scarlet Witch. This unreasonable woman is going to help Spider-Man become the heir to Iron Man. They're all crazy. I'm telling everyone now, Spider-Man, it's Peter Parker." In the picture, the mysterious guest Quentin's face is full of injuries, and his tone is weak and terrified. As he said that, he had already turned the camera and looked forward. A young high school student dressed in Spider-Man costume was walking towards this side. Then, boom. Accompanied by bursts of ear-piercing gunshots, the camera went black. Only the sound of bullet casings hitting the ground echoed in my ears. Next morning. In the autumn morning, the cool air blows into the half-covered windows, the curtains flutter and rustle with the wind, and the sunlight shining into the house flickers. Click. It's rare to see people on the road at 6:30. Li Zi opened the window completely, breathing in the morning air. At the moment, there were already people running on the side of the road. It was Tianjin Bureau Agent James Wu who was pretending to be a resident, and few people in the nearby community would go out at this point. Because everyone works in the town, compared to the fast-paced big cities. Zijing Town usually doesn't go to work until 8 or 9 o'clock, just leave the house 20 minutes earlier, it doesn't have to be that early at all. Agents are hardworking. Li Zi glanced at the witch curled up in bed. This woman said last night that she would get up early to study. As a result, when the alarm clock rang, there was no movement at all. He smiled helplessly, hugged the coat on his body with emotion, closed the window and walked towards the living room. The temperature in the early autumn morning is cool and refreshing, which is very unfriendly to people who have just come out of bed. After a simple wash, I saw that it was still early and I was not in a hurry to make breakfast. Li Zi sat on the sofa and turned on the TV, watching the morning news broadcast by BBC, which is the most authoritative and largest news agency in America. Almost all the major events in the world and in China cannot skip the eyes of BBC. But BBC is also very hypocritical, some of which are the so-called truth, but not the truth. According to yesterday's Times reporter investigation, it was found that Sombra, Mysterio, Scarlet Witch, and Spider-Man solved the big crisis. And Sombra and Mysterio, as the new superheroes, have saved people from danger in a few days. And the two hosts on the TV talked to each other, reporting the news of the day before yesterday. Nick Fury didn't expose Mysterio. Li Zi leaned on the soft sofa, was surprised to see this, and immediately reacted. Forget, that's not Nick Fury, but a fake. The real Nick Ray is not on the Earth, but in the spaceship of the Screws in outer space. This also makes sense, why the most cautious person on the Earth would be played by the unknown villain Mysterio. Because fakes simply don't have that much power. In addition, it is enough to prove that the counterfeit is estimated to have left the Earth directly after completing the mission. Didn't leave to deal with the funeral, which indirectly led to the exposure of Little Spider-Man's identity. In the original book, Little Spider-Man probably didn't expect that the people who fought together were all fakes. It seems that the three bugs are not far away. Li Zi estimated the time, and there was no accident. The slowest is that someone will expose the identity of Little Spider-Man next week, and it will be another big farce. By the way, what happened last night? He suddenly remembered that he knew magic last night, and Wanda saw it, but the system didn't respond. Since he has been getting tired of the witch, he temporarily put it down. Now that I think about it, I quickly ask the system. Ding. The hidden strength is limited to the ability linked to the system. The host's own ability is not within the scope of judgment. After reading the system prompt, Li Zi immediately understood. The system means that the exposed ability comes from the system, so it will be judged as a failure. For example, the ability created by creating magic, the technique of spiritualization, the shadow core, and Avada Kedavra all come from the system in the end. Therefore, it is within the scope of judgment. And the magic he inadvertently displayed last night actually came from the Dark Divine Book. So it is not within the scope of judgment. After all, it does not belong to the system, but to the host itself. For example, Li Zi originally has super high fighting skills, he goes out to fight with others. This situation will naturally not be judged as a hidden failure. If I knew this, I should have gone to Doctor Strange to steal some magic books to learn. Li Zi couldn't help complaining. With his ability, it is not a problem to go to the holy place to steal a few magic books, and now his overall strength is already higher than Doctor Strange. At this stage, Stephen's performance in battle is far from the level of Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One. But with his ability, it will be a matter of time before he surpasses Ancient One. There were many disappearances at night in Zijing Town yesterday. At this time, the content broadcast on the TV caught Li Zi's attention. Huh? Westview? Li Zi heard that it was the town she was in, and immediately looked up. According to the police's search, no remains were found, and the on-site surveillance did not capture any footage of anyone leaving. Specific incidents. Finished listening. Li Zi was a little surprised. The way he mysteriously disappeared at night, he seemed to have seen it somewhere a long time ago, and it seemed to be related to magic. He couldn't remember it for a while, so he could only put it down temporarily. After reading the news, he couldn't help complaining. A small Zijing town can still encounter weird events. It's almost 8 o'clock so soon. Li Zi looked up, and the hands of the clock on the wall were approaching 8 o'clock. It's almost time for Wanda to wake up. Let's make breakfast first. Talking. He stretched himself, got up and walked towards the kitchen. It's rare to cook today. Maybe because the relationship with the witch is different. I really want to cook a meal for her and feed her. The style of breakfast is very simple. Since nearly a month, Wanda has been eating Chinese food with herself, and she has gotten used to the eating habits of Chinese food. So he cooked a pot of preserved egg and lean pork porridge, fried some fried dough sticks, and ground soy milk. Although he never cooks at home, he also prepared some materials to prevent accidents. Coo. Not for a while. Thin white smoke filled the kitchen, and a fresh fragrance wafted out, and anyone who smelled it would feel their appetite whetted. It should be almost there. Li Zi put a pot of porridge and soybean milk fried dough sticks on the table, with a satisfied expression on his face. Li, have you made breakfast? The door of the room opened and it was Wanda who woke up. Her eyes were blurred, and her thin pajamas drooped to reveal her milky white shoulders. Since she just woke up, her hair was a little fluffy, making her look a little more lazy and charming. Well, Little slob, hurry up and wash up, or the breakfast will be cold. Li Zi nodded and put 2 bowls of porridge on the table. So you know how to cook. Wanda walked to the table and smelled the tempting fresh fragrance, and suddenly became a little sober. Lu Mei raised her eyebrows slightly and said in surprise. The two have been together for so long, almost going out for breakfast, lunch and dinner together for more than a month, and they have never seen Li Zi cooking at home. Just because you haven't done it, doesn't mean you haven't done it. Li Zi couldn't help pinching her cheek hard. Don't squeeze it, it's oily. Wanda dodged and touched the place where she was pinched. Her face must be oily from not washing all night. No, witch, you don't seem to understand how good your skin really is. Li Zi stretched out his hand and pinched it again. His white and tender face was hard to put down. The witch's skin is very good, even when she wakes up in the morning, she doesn't feel oily. And after staying up for several days and nights, under her clear and beautiful eyes, there is no sign of dark circles under her eyes. God is really not ashamed of this woman. Glib. Wanda is in a good mood after being praised, turns and walks into the bathroom. On the table. How is it delicious? Li Zi looked at the woman drinking porridge with her head down, and asked expectantly. It's delicious. Wanda couldn't stop after taking a sip, and finished the bowl in just a few sips. Her pink tongue licked her lips insatiably. There's still a lot in the pot, drink more. A smile formed on the corner of Li Zi's mouth, and he helped him fill another bowl of porridge. Drip drip. The phone in his pocket rang. He glanced down, picked up the phone. No problem, thank you. Simply say a few words and then decisively call. Who is it? Wanda wondered. That house of yours has been built. Li Zi said slowly. So fast. Wanda was a little surprised, it's only been a month. The wooden house construction team even felt that it was a week late, but the water and electricity can be used normally, so. What do you want to do with this house? Live in it. Li Zi said a lot, but only the last 2 sentences were what he really wanted to ask. He knew in his heart that the address of the house was chosen by vision. Sell it. Wanda didn't have the slightest hesitation when she heard it. Sell? Li Zi was somewhat surprised to hear this answer. Unexpectedly, the witch was so decisive that she directly chose to sell the house. I have completely let go of the past, and if I keep thinking about it, it would be disrespectful to you. Wanda raised her head, with a serious expression on her pretty face, and said seriously. Li, I don't want you to be sad, so let's sell the house. Thank you, witch. Li Zi felt warm in his heart. Outsiders would never have imagined that a witch with a seemingly indifferent temper would say such heartwarming words. Sure enough, there is a saying, there is no real indifference, it is just indifference to you. Finish breakfast. According to Wanda, the newly completed house was directly put on the internet and listed for sale by the middleman in the town. The price is not cheap, because it is sold together with the land. Coupled with the fact that the tax is not expensive, the price has also been improved. But it should sell out soon. It should be clear that the land is a permanent right to use, but you have to pay taxes every year, otherwise you will be forced to reclaim it. Therefore, many people buy houses or land with low taxes. Boom boom boom. There was a hasty knock on the door. Li, is Wanda with you? A familiar shout with an oriental accent came. Click. Li Zi opened the door, and there was a man and a woman standing outside. They were the Tianjin Bureau agents James Wu and Monica Rambo who moved into the apartment a few days ago. What's wrong with you two? He doesn't like the people in Tianjin Bureau a little bit. This group of guys are the same as S.H.I.E.L.D. Every time they show up, nothing good will happen. We're looking for Wanda. James. Wu pointed to the room. Wu. How could Wanda be at his house? Monica gave him a blank stare. As far as she knew, Wanda had just been through grief. There was no way a man would let her get over it quickly. What do you want me for? However, Wanda poked her head out from behind Li Zi. When she saw the two of them, she frowned slightly, and her tone became much colder. I perceive that you have the aura of the Heavenly Sword Bureau. Heavenly Sword Bureau? Is it the rogue organization you mentioned before? Li Zi pretended to be surprised and said, cough cough cough. James. Wu coughed twice and explained. I'm sorry, there was a misunderstanding before. Hayward asked us to investigate a case without a case, by the way. So he suspects that I have something to do with that case? Wanda sneered. With a pretty face as white as snow, and a sneer at the corner of her mouth, it seemed that the temperature of the air suddenly dropped. Misunderstanding. We already know that you participated in Nick Fury's mission the day before yesterday, so we came to you today to apologize. James. Wu felt cold, and quickly opened his mouth to explain. Li Zi and Wanda left a few days ago. They thought something big was going to happen. It turned out that he was going on a trip, and by the way he got rid of a super villain. Properly decent, it is impossible to commit murder. There is a high probability that the black magician, Agatha Nix, did it, but unfortunately the old witch is dead. Just to apologize. Say something quickly. Wanda's eyes swept across the two of them like a blade, and said slowly. Well, we're here for a spooky case. It might be a spooky case. In recent days, people often disappear at night, and the room is empty the next day. The police couldn't find any clues, not even surveillance footage. James. Wu said the purpose. Hearing this, Li Zi immediately became interested, because the case was the same as what he had heard in the morning. It's just that the only thing mentioned in the news was that someone was killed last night. Obviously, the police deliberately concealed the truth in order to prevent the impact of their gaffe. Mysterious disappearance? Wanda was slightly taken aback. She didn't expect such an incident to happen in Westview Town. That's right. Although the police had no clues, we found some clues. It was a little girl who was driving at a high speed. We saw in a dream that someone was going to take her away, but she broke free at the last moment. James Wu said, handing out a document. He glanced at Li Zi, who was narrating, and coughed twice to indicate that this was a confidential internal document of the Tianjin Bureau. If you don't let him see it, neither will I. Wanda took the document as she spoke, and opened it in front of Li Zi. James Wu wanted to stop it, but he asked for help, so he could only pretend he didn't see it. The first page contains the little girl's file and what she said during the transcript. But those words did not attract her, but she was attracted by the picture of the little girl. The girl was very young. She looked like 5 or 6 years old. She was pink and jade carved, with blonde hair and fair skin, a bit like Hermione when she was a child. The witch looked at the photo and poked Li Zi next to her. Li, you see, we seem to have seen her before. Which time? Li Zi ignored the threat in James Wu's eyes, and leaned over to look at the file. After thinking for a moment, it's the girl you saved before. Wanda nodded. The night before, when I first came to Zijing Town, I rescued a mother and daughter with Li Zi on the way, and the girl in the file was exactly her. It seems that the people of Tianjin Bureau are lucky. The witch is willing to help you. Hearing this, Li Zi put away the documents and said slowly. Li, why did you tell me what I said? Wanda frowned, feigned dissatisfaction. Because I'm the roundworm in your stomach. Li Zi was very familiar with witches. Seeing her expression, he immediately knew what was going on in her heart. When the witch rescued the girl before, her eyes were full of love, and it was impossible to let the case go unnoticed. Definitely, even if it didn't happen, a good witch would do it. Wanda, on behalf of the Heavenly Sword Bureau, I thank you. Wu and Monica are very touched. Everything will be much easier with the help of the top Chawang. However, as soon as he finished speaking, his face froze when he heard the answer. You should thank us. I will take Li with me. Wanda took Li Zi next to her, with an undeniable expression on her face. Li Zi had no objection. Anyway, he had nothing to do at home, so he might as well go with the witch. Having a companion would ensure her safety. Besides, the addresses are all within the range of Zijing Town. A rare opportunity. After all, he only went out of the prescribed range a few days ago, and he will not be able to leave Zijing Town for the next week. So this may be the only thing to watch for the next week. In addition, after reading the file, Li Zi has already guessed the mastermind behind the scenes, and there is a high probability that it is another believer who wants to summon Mephisto. It's been a long time since I've been in the Marvel Universe, and this is the first time I've encountered the Mephisto event. I don't know if Doctor Strange will be provoked. That guy is a professional who only deals with Mephisto, so it's not surprising that he's here. No problem. Wu and Monica looked at each other, hesitated for a moment before nodding in agreement. Both of them are core members of the task force, and they have the right to let anyone participate in the task, but they have to take risks, but it is insignificant compared with Wanda's joining. Soon, Li Zi and Wanda simply packed up and followed them to the little girl's house. East Township of Zijing Town. In front of a small 2-story building, the black SUV of Tianjin Bureau drove slowly and parked on the side of the road. Is this the building? The car door opened. Wanda got out of the car and pointed to the European-style building in front of her. Well, I wish they were home. Monica Rambeau walked over first, with a worried expression on her face. She said, I hope they are at home. The recent disappearances are disturbing. This morning, when the Burkes knew that their daughter might be targeted, they clamored for go find the necromancer. You know, in fact, rich people believe in necromancer more than us. James. Wu Chong, Li Zi and Wanda raised their eyebrows, with mean smiles on their faces. Li Zi nodded in agreement, then looked at Wanda beside him. At the moment, the witch was looking down at the Book of the Dark God. She had been reading the Book of the Dark God along the way, and seemed to hope to find the answer from the book. After all, this is the book of the ancient god Sithorn, so there will be related records to some extent. Beep. Mr. Burke, are you home? Monica Rambeau pressed the doorbell, and a crisp doorbell echoed. After a while, the door was opened, and a Japanese-skinned man with an elegant appearance and majesty between his brows pushed the door open. When he saw Monica outside the door, he frowned. What are you doing? The police can't control this matter at all. Mr. Burke, I understand how you feel. Monica understood Burke's feelings. Her daughter was being targeted, but the police were like headless flies without any thoughts. It won't be a good attitude for anyone. Thinking about it, she took a step back, looked back at Wanda and said slowly, so the ones who are really going to handle the case this time are not us, but the 10 top superheroes from Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch. At this time, a woman came out of the room and saw the two people outside the door. Immediately there was joy on his face. Burke, they are the ones who saved my daughter and me in the alley a month ago. I know you, Scarlet Witch. Mr. Burke's eyes lit up when he heard the words, and he walked up with a smile and extended his hand politely. Hello. It was the first time for Wanda to meet such an enthusiastic person, and she stretched out her hand and shook it somewhat restrainedly. Wanda, you have a double bonus, and the buff is fully stacked. Li Zi next to him lowered his head, leaned into the witch's ear and said in a deep voice, the witch plus Avenger Chawing. Who is this? Burke naturally noticed Li Zi a long time ago, especially seeing that the two of them were in such close contact. Mistakenly thought that was also the Avenger's superhero. For one more Chawing, he is naturally happy in his heart. It's just that Burke looked at Li Zi, hesitated for a long time but couldn't call out his name. Li Zi, Scarlet Witch's boyfriend. On the contrary, Li Zi stretched out his hand politely and smiled. He's just here to watch, but don't worry, he will never make trouble. James. Wu saw that Burke regarded Li Zi as Chawing, so in order to avoid the misunderstanding from continuing, he hurriedly explained. Well, let's go in first. Hear this. Burke was a little embarrassed. It turned out that he was not Chawing, but just an ordinary person. Everyone did not rest after entering the house, but went directly to the room on the second floor, and the door was closed tightly. Since the dream last night, Josie has kept herself in the room and refused to come out. Burke said and gently opened the door. The windows in the room were closed and the curtains were drawn tight, making the room look dark and gloomy. On the bed in the middle, a little girl was curled up on the bed covered with a quilt, and raised her head cautiously when she heard the sound. Dad, who are they? Josie immediately became nervous when she saw so many people walking into the room. Josie, don't be afraid, they are all here to help you catch the bad guys. Burke walked to the bedside and comforted him softly. Josie, do you remember me? Wanda walked over and looked at the little girl carved in pink and jade, her eyes were full of love. Scarlet Witch. Seeing her, Josie's immature face immediately showed joy, and she said in surprise, Dad, you really hired a witch to help me. Yeah, wait, you have to cooperate well with Sister Witch, don't cry, don't make trouble, okay? Burke breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that the woman was no longer afraid. Yeah, but except for that big brother, everyone else has to go out. Chao Qian raised her head and pointed at Li Zi. Apparently she also recognized Li Zi, the big brother who knocked down the bad guy in the alley a month ago. Cough cough cough. James. Wu couldn't help coughing a few times. Did he fail in his disguise as a policeman? The victim called for an ordinary person by name. Neither wanted him. What can an ordinary person do by staying here? Monica was also a little embarrassed, but the little girl didn't want them, so what could she do? Okay, you have to be obedient. Burke raised his head and smiled at Wanda, then looked at Li Zi and nodded. Although Li Zi is an ordinary person, his role is at least much greater than these two policemen. Thinking about it, he glanced at Wu and Monica coldly, took them out together, and closed the door. Li Zi naturally noticed Burke's mood swings, but he ignored them. Instead, he focused his attention on the little girl carved in pink and jade. He squatted beside the bed and couldn't help reaching out and pinching the girl's face. Little guy, you still remember me? Definitely remember, you kicked the bad guys down with one kick. Josie imitated Li Zi's action that night, waving her small fist and hitting the pillow. When you grow up, I can teach you. Li Zi rubbed the little guy's head, outlined a curved smile and said. Li, let's get down to business first. Wanda looked at the man speechlessly, acting a little childish. Sure enough, a man is a teenager until he dies. As she said that, she looked at Josie with soft eyes, and asked gently, Josie, can you tell me what you dreamed about last night? There is a record in the file of Tianjin Bureau, but Yu Bing Kaichin has passed it and is afraid that he will not say more. As a result, very little is recorded in the archives. Last night. Heard the words. Josie seemed to have seen something, and curled up under the blanket in horror. Don't be afraid, we'll protect you, tell us what exactly you dreamed about. Wanda perceived the girl's emotional changes, and asked softly as she brushed her back with a faint scarlet light. I dreamed that someone was going to take him away. He was wearing Gargamel's clothes. Josie's immature face was gradually soothed. Obviously the influence of origin magic power played a role. Go on. Wanda's tone is gentle, like a sister next door. He wants to take me away. That place is an altar and there are many people like me. All of them were captured from other places. The girl hid in the bed, recalling the scene she saw in the dream last night, and she gradually fell asleep while talking. Altar. Wanda looked at the sleeping girl. She turned her head to look at Lizzie, and said the answer. It's a nightmare. I saw it in the book of the Dark God. What are you going to do? Lizzie frowned slightly, because the witch thought the same as himself. I also think it was done by Nightmare, one of the most famous Mephistos in the Marvel Universe. Possesses a powerful magic field, almost invincible in its field, and he relies on absorbing dreams to enhance his strength. Judging from Josie's description, there is a high probability that it was the work of the Nightmare's messenger on Earth. I want to meet the Apostle of Nightmare in person. Wanda glanced at the frowning girl on the bed, her eyes filled with distress. I trust you and listen to you. Lizzie knows that dealing with the Apostle of the Nightmare can only be solved at the source. Otherwise, the apostles would still do evil in another place, and these fanatical believers would not let go of any opportunity. They have been thoroughly seduced by the power of Mephisto. Time passed quickly. Soon the deep blue sky was covered with a layer of darkness, dotted with stars, and the night wind kept blowing the trees by the roadside. Russell. Room on the second floor. Lee, are you not afraid of my wrong judgment? Wanda sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes fell on the sleeping girl under the blanket. I trust you. Lizzie rubbed her head and said softly, let's get out of here first, she might be about to enter a dream later. I'm just worried that if something goes wrong, I don't know where Kunshi will be taken. Wanda nodded and stood up, taking one last look at the girl curled up under the blanket. Witch, do you like children very much? Lizzie noticed the emotion in her eyes. The witch showed this expression several times today. Women really like cute human cubs very much, but Josie's appearance is indeed very delicate, with a pink face and a high nose, making people unable to help but cherish it at a glance. It's normal for witches to like it. Thinking of this, he smiled slightly. You like it, we want one when we go back. Who? Who said I like it? Wanda froze for a moment. She was innocent but not stupid, so she naturally knew what Lizzie was planning. Drip drip. At this time, the mobile phone rang, interrupting the two of them. Wanda picked up the phone, and it was James Wu who was next door. Josie's brainwaves are abnormal, and she has entered a dream. Hearing this, the two hurried to the next room. At the moment, there were only James Wu and Monica in the room. As for the Burke couple, they were picked up by the Heavenly Sword Bureau this afternoon, the reason being that their work would not be hindered. There's been a lot of volatility, and it looks like she's having nightmares again. Monica pointed to the electroencephalogram on the screen of the instrument, which was beating due to amplitude. The greater the fluctuation, the greater the dream activity of at the moment Josie. As time goes by, the brainwave curve keeps rising. She's terrified. Wanda closed her eyes slowly, feeling the emotion of the girl on the next bed, and her own breathing also became short of breath. Calm down, it's okay, this is normal behavior. Lizzie stroked the witch's back and comforted her. She's up. At this time, James Wu, who was watching the surveillance screen, saw the girl standing up from the bed in the screen, but her eyes were closed tightly, obviously unconscious sleepwalking. Then the girl walked to the window, exerted great strength with her arms, and slammed the window open and stood on the windowsill. Clearly she wanted to jump from here, she's going to jump. Seeing this, Wu hurriedly got up to save people. No, she'll be fine. Lizzie grabbed him and stared at the girl in the picture. Are you crazy? This is the second floor, James. Wu wanted to struggle to break free, only to find that the hand was like a pair of iron clamps, firmly clasping his arm. No matter how hard you try, you can't break free. Lee, you were right. Wanda just finished speaking. Girl has jumped and then, it disappeared into the monitoring range, and then the monitoring flickered violently in white, as if it was paralyzed by the influence of the magnetic field. Shit. Crazy. At this moment Lizzie let go, James Wu cursed and rushed downstairs. The three also hurriedly followed, and when they got downstairs, the scene in front of them shocked the two agents of the Heavenly Sword Bureau. The girl who jumped down from the second floor didn't get hurt at all, instead she ran quickly towards the north. A girl who is obviously so thin runs fast, damn it. James. Wu looked at Lizzie in disbelief. How did this guy see it? Don't be dazed. Hurry up and take a look. After Li Zi reminded, he pulled Wanda to follow Chao Qian's figure and plunged into the darkness ahead together. I think we should wait for reinforcements first. James. Wu was scared, but he didn't have time to stop him, so he could only watch the two go away. Follow up quickly. Do you want to be left behind by an ordinary person? Monica next to her didn't plan to stay and wait for reinforcements, so she hurriedly chased after her, and at the same time, she didn't forget to turn her head to ask Wu. Fac. Reluctantly, James Wu glanced at the empty road, his heart was terrified, and he gritted his teeth and followed along. 10 minutes later, a few people followed Josie, who was sleepwalking, to the woods outside the town, where there was a decaying old church and a messy yard. It could be seen that this church had been abandoned for a long time. Click. Josie walked to the church, and the door opened automatically. Then she went in directly, and saw that several people hiding behind the trees were about to follow, and a few sleepwalking figures walked in the distance. There were old and young, men and women. They walked into the 130 doors of the open church one after another, and then the heavy doors were closed. Coupled with the closed windows, the outside was completely isolated from the inside. Okay. Now that we're all here, I want to be assigned as a doctor. James. Wu took a deep breath, and almost exhausted him from running all the way. He breathed a sigh of relief and continued. For a while, Li Zi, you stay, the three of us will go in. But he had just finished speaking. Li Zi and Wanda in front had already got up and walked towards the church. What, Monica, are you sure you don't want to stop him? An ordinary person is cannon fodder in the face of supernatural events, even if he has the strongest Avenger as his girlfriend. James. Wu saw Li Zi directly ignoring him, and complained angrily with some embarrassment. Shish, hurry up. Monica didn't pay much attention to him, and strode to keep up with the two of them. James Wu had no choice but to keep up. Before leaving, he left a communicator with the location of the Heavenly Sword Bureau on it. If something unexpected happens, the Heavenly Sword Bureau can also find their location. Click. It's kind of spooky here, but I've only seen it in movies before. Li Zi looked around at the gloomy forest, frowning slightly. Shish, Li, be quiet. Wanda put her hand over his mouth and felt a few crows flying overhead. After getting along for such a long time, the witch found that this guy seemed to be always optimistic. Even the apostle who faced the nightmare of Mephisto can talk and laugh and make people feel relaxed, as if there is no fear at all. Perhaps, it is Li Zi's unique, super ability. Click. Just as he was thinking, the door of the church in front of him opened automatically. How did it open? Wanda is puzzled. He is provoking us, do you want to go in? Li Zi got the perception that there was a pair of eyes watching them. It's a pity that the man's magic attainment is too low, and he couldn't get past Li Long's capture. Go in. Wanda hesitated for a moment, thinking that Josie had just entered here. She clenched her fist slightly and walked in first. You two are free. Seeing this, Li Zi hurriedly followed, and it seemed really interesting to face Marvel's Mephisto messenger for the first time. James Wu and Monica at the back looked at each other, not to be outdone, followed. After all the people went in, the heavy door of the church was closed. Bang. Huge amounts of sound echoed through the forest. However, a few people don't know that after they are about to enter the church. Two figures appeared on the hillside not far from the church, one thin and the other fat, standing there looking in the direction of the church. Stephen, are you sure it's here? Wong wondered. Wong, although you are a sorcerer supreme, in fact my attainments in this area are higher than yours. Dr. Strange Stephen was quite dissatisfied when he heard that he was questioned. Then don't talk nonsense, hurry over and have a look, I have to deal with other things in the dojo later. Come on, Wong, dealing with Mephisto is what Sorcerer Supreme should do. The two of you glanced at me and said a word, and flew towards the church wrapped in golden light. Bang. The heavy doors of the church were closed to block the cool evening wind outside, and the sound of huge amounts of echoed in the cold hall. The hall is dimly lit, the ceiling above the head is high, and the hollow part can see the corridor on the second floor. Moonlight spilled into the old church through the dilapidated roof. Li Zi stepped on the rotten wooden boards and walked towards the front. There were rows of chairs sitting in front of the podium, and the wooden chairs were damp and covered with moss. It seems to be a building that no one has forgotten for many years, and there is no vitality in sight. Click. This place is kind of weird. James Wu walked at the back, looking around. A gust of cold air came, making people shivering and creeping. He shivered a few times and reminded, it doesn't look like the church is that big from the outside, but why does the space seem to get a lot bigger after entering? Because the door of the church is just a portal to another dimension, a bit similar to Dr. Strange's mirror image technique. Wanda frowned, and explained with a gradually dignified expression. No wonder the police couldn't find any leads. Li Zi looked suddenly enlightened, but actually noticed something strange when he stepped into the gate just now. There is a subtle difference between the time flow inside the house and the outside, which is difficult for ordinary people to detect, but he, who is also a magician, can naturally feel it. Li, you have to get out of here. Wanda felt a little regretful. She shouldn't have brought Li Zi in with her. The Mephisto apostle who can create a different dimension must be a senior magician. She wasn't fully sure that she could deal with it. If something happened to her, Li Zi might be tired of filing a case. That's right. I also think we should go out and wait for reinforcements. The task force from the Heavenly Sword Bureau will arrive soon. Behind. Upon hearing this, James Wu hurriedly turned and walked towards the gate. Which, we're all in. Do you think he'll let us out? Li Zi ignored the counselor agent, but held the witch's restless little hand. You have to believe in yourself. Mephisto's apostles are not powerful. But it's too dangerous for you to stay. Wanda showed self-blame on her face, and she only now realized how stupid and wrong it was to bring Li Zi by herself. Although his magic ability is very strong, but after all, he is just getting started. No matter how fast you learn, without years of accumulation, it is impossible to fully display the power of magic. Bang bang bang. At this time, James Wu, who was trying to open the door, pulled hard and found that the door was completely locked, and he couldn't even pull it. Fake. Don't even think about going out, because the door is not open. He realized that his face was a little bad when he couldn't get out, not because he was afraid of death. Instead, they feel that their current behavior is no different from sending them to death in vain. You should stay where you are and wait for reinforcements. Boom. At this time, the rotten wooden boards under everyone's feet trembled, and with the intensified trembling, the surrounding facilities began to change. Pieces of chairs in front of them corroded, turning into dust at a speed visible to the naked eye. The priest's podium and the statue of Jesus in the center. In a few seconds, everything turned into a puddle of soil. In just a few seconds, the original ancient church underwent earth-shaking changes and became a spacious hall. Be careful, everyone, he's coming. Wanda scanned the surroundings vigilantly, her scarlet eyes became sharper. The white greasy little hand held Li Zi and blocked her behind. Boom. At the moment with violent tremors, the central floor of the hall split, 4 pillars depicting strange runes rose up, and strange lines appeared in the middle area. Guys, I am the apostle of Mephisto's nightmare in the world, Carrot. In the dark corner in front of the hall, a man in a black robe walked out slowly. He took off the hood, revealing a pale face with black bags under the eyes, and black lines at the corners of the eyes. He opened his arms and said loudly, "Welcome to witness the great and sacred ceremony." Which, I just said that he is very weak. The bags under his eyes are so dark, it is obvious that he has kidney deficiency. After seeing Carrot, Li Zi couldn't help complaining. Sure enough, it is the standard equipment for blackened people. Regardless of whether it is made in China or America, basically every blackened person has black eye bags. The original Scarlet Witch Late Blacken also has black eye makeup. It seems that without blackening, there is no way to see this person as blacken. In other words, if the bags under the eyes are not black, it is not worthy of blacken. Boy, if you weren't hiding behind Scarlet Witch, you would be dead. Carrot, who was opening her arms to pretend, twitched the corners of her mouth when she heard these words. Her fierce eyes fell on Li Zi, and she said in a cold tone, "Witch, he is killing me." Li Zi met the apostle's gaze, forgetting that the witch leaned back. "Li, don't talk nonsense." Wanda was quite helpless when she heard that. Ordinary people have long been terrified in the face of this situation, and this guy actually dared to make fun of the Mephisto apostle. Then she looked at the apostle Carrot and asked, "What are you going to do when you let us in?" "Wanda, don't you know what I want?" The apostle Carrot ignored Li Zi anymore. In his eyes, Li Zi was just an ordinary person, without any threat at all. Compared to Scarlet Witch, other things are not worth mentioning. "You want Chaos Force too?" Li Zi, who was originally hiding behind the witch, realized that someone coveted his wife again, and his eyes suddenly became unfriendly. "It's not me, I want to dedicate Chaos Force to the Supreme Nightmare." The apostle Keela caressed the lines on the pillar, and looked at Wanda unscrupulously with fanatical eyes. "I have been waiting for you, Wanda. After waiting for so many days, you finally returned to West Market Town. I knew you would come to get involved in this kind of case. No wonder, people from the Heavenly Sword Bureau will find clues this morning." After listening to Wanda, she can imagine it no matter how simple she is. A few days ago, mysterious cases of disappearances began to appear, but the Heavenly Sword Bureau searched for so long, and there was no clue at all, but there was a new clue this morning. It turns out that everything is caused by the Mephisto apostle, and the purpose is to lure himself into the net. She couldn't figure out why so many people want to get Chaos Force. So, get ready to be sacrificed. Talking. The apostle Keela snapped his fingers, and countless figures suddenly appeared around the hall. They walk like puppets, with indifferent expressions and dull eyes without any emotion, as if they are really like puppets. Josie. Wanda noticed the familiar figure in the crowd. Her face suddenly became cold, and she said angrily, "These are all people you captured. You damn devil. More than 1,000 people, what a beast." Li Zi next to him also had a gloomy tone. It is estimated that there are thousands of people, most of them are children. All under the age of 10. I dare not think how dark my heart is to extend my claws to young children. Hee, for a great cause, sacrifice is necessary. The apostle Keela laughed, and the next second her tone was suddenly cold, grab Scarlet Witch, and kill everyone else. The words fell. The crowd who were like puppets all raised their heads at the same time and stared at Li Zi, who was surrounded in the middle. Next second. Whoosh. Thousands of people burst into action at the same time like a wave of zombies, rushing towards them, and all the people in the front row were young children. Hateful. Wanda's fair and pretty face was anxious and angry. She couldn't deal with a group of children at all. Without any choice, she had no choice but to condense a layer of reddish energy protective cover, wrapping several people together inside. What do we do now? He has an army of kids. James Wu looked at the sleepwalker frantically flapping the protective cover outside, holding the gun tightly in his hand. Hesitation. Don't shoot. Li Zi pressed down the muzzle of the gun in his hand, and said in a deep voice, "It's useless to kill innocent people. The apostle will find more people." Then he looked at Wanda beside him, and reminded, "Witch, there are not many people on Earth who can resist the psychic attack of origin magic power. Let me try." Wanda nodded, slowly closed her eyes and took a deep breath, clenched her hands slightly. Whoosh. In an instant. She opened her eyes again and found a dim world in front of her, surrounded by countless weeping figures, standing in the darkness trembling with fear. These are the souls of sleepwalkers, and they all come together. Josie. Wanda saw one of the figures, precisely because of Yin. At the moment the little girl was squatting on the ground, crying and shaking with fear. Groups of black aura wrapped around her body, eroding her body. Josie, wake up. Wanda walked over and spoke again, trying to wake the little girl up. But she still didn't respond. Seeing this, Wanda had no choice but to spread out her hands, gathering the scarlet chaos energy, endless energy continuously gathering. Even her eyes were filled with red light. And at the same time, real world. Wanda was closing her eyes, a scarlet light appeared all over her body, and with the surge of airflow intensified, the air was once distorted. This is chaos force. In the center of the hall, the apostle Carrot in front of the pillar felt the terrifying surge of energy, and couldn't help but feel a lot of emotion in his heart. Boom. That's it. In the protective shield formed by the condensed scarlet light, a terrifying wave suddenly erupted, sweeping outward. All those who touched the red light froze in place for a moment. After a few seconds, their empty eyes gradually came to their senses, and they looked around blankly. Witch, you are amazing. Li Zi was not surprised. From the very beginning he didn't think the witch would lose. After all, witches have origin magic power. Even if they are just beginning to practice the Dark God book, it is easy to deal with an apostle of Mephisto. Let's put it this way, Wanda with origin magic power is considered lazy and doesn't study. As long as the time is long enough, her strength will continue to grow. What's more, the current Wanda is a hard-working and good witch. I just did what you said. Wanda opened her eyes and was relieved to see all those sleepwalkers woke up. Sister Witch, you finally came to save me. At this moment, Josie rushed out from the crowd, hugged Wanda and said with a grieved tone, a Gargamel caught me here just now. Gargamel. Li Zi found it interesting, and glanced at the apostle Carrot in the distance, but the other party looked a bit like Gargamel in the Smurfs. Sister, can you catch that bad guy for you? Wanda gently touched Josie's head, and then fixed her eyes on the apostle Carrot in the distance. The apostle Carrot in front of the pillar happened to meet the witch's cold gaze, but there was no fear in his eyes. Origin magic power is really powerful. I dedicate you to Master Mephisto. I will definitely receive a gift. It's really courting death. However, he didn't wait for him to finish. A crimson figure had already floated up, and then the red light wrapped around the pillar, and when it was pulled hard, it suddenly collapsed. Boom. Column it turned into countless wreckage fragments and was directly buried by Apostle Carrot. Lee, you take them out of here first. Wanda floated in midair, turned her head and asked. Don't even think about leaving alone. Bang. Piles of pillar fragments suddenly rose from the sky, and there were also bursts of terrifying and gloomy black aura. It's the Apostle Carrot, who radiates black aura all over his body and flies up into the air, overlooking everyone in the hall, with black aura radiating from his eyes. Still able to stand up. Seeing him flying out, Wanda waved his hands and blasted endless scarlet beams. Boom. Facing the oncoming scarlet light beam, the Apostle Keela opened his hand without any fear, and a cloud of black mist shrouded in front of him. The moment the terrifying energy hit the black mist, endless strong winds oscillated and raged. The people below were completely awakened by the strong wind, and they all hid behind the bunker in horror. Great gift crab. James Wu leaned against a table and glanced at the two fighting above. He looked at Li Zi, who was holding the little girl next to him. Li, you and Wanda are together. Didn't you learn a few tricks of witchcraft secretly? Can you open that door, otherwise no one will be able to leave. Don't think about it, unless Carrot is killed, the space cannot be destroyed from inside. Li Zi glanced at the witch and Carrot, not knowing what he was thinking about. What? James Wu was a little desperate. He actually expected an ordinary person to save them, so he might as well think of other ways. Boom. At the moment, above the center of the spacious hall, one crimson and one jet black figure exuded terrifying power and shrouded the surroundings. The power emanating from their bodies is like big invisible hands, pulling each other to play games. But obvious. The momentum of the black aura is far inferior to that of the scarlet light, and it is constantly suppressed. The scarlet energy is gradually devouring the black aura. Damn. The Apostle Carrot's forehead was covered with sweat. He clearly felt this in his heart, and he underestimated Scarlet Witch's strength. To be precise, Chaos Force is underestimated. I thought that a person who has never studied magic, even with origin magic power, would not be so easy to deal with. Carrot give up resistance. Wanda saw that the opponent was already struggling, so she resolutely began to increase the pressure, and even more terrifying energy spewed out from her fingertips. Put pressure on Carrot and go. Looking at the scarlet light that enveloped him, the Apostle Keela couldn't help cursing in a low voice. Yu Guang looked for opportunities to counterattack. Boy, I almost forgot about you. Suddenly he noticed Li Zi and Chao Shi hiding behind a stone table not far away. In order to catch Wanda as a sacrifice, he did an investigation to know Li Zi's identity. I also know that the other party is just an ordinary person. What are you up to? Wanda on the opposite side noticed that his gaze was Li Zi below, and suddenly felt a little bad in her heart. Sure enough, the next second. Boom. On the opposite side, the Apostle Keela, who was surrounded by black mist, suddenly disappeared into the air with a flash. In an instant, he had already appeared above Li Zi's head, and the endless black mist condensed into a huge bat, which was suddenly thrown downwards. Boom. Li Zi, get out of the way. Seeing this, Wanda's pretty face turned pale, her heart seemed to stop suddenly, and a sense of suffocation came to her heart. The figure turned into a red light and flew over there. It's over. Seeing this, James Wu hurriedly pulled out his gun. Although he didn't like Li Zi very much, he couldn't watch a fresh life die. But the pistol jammed at a critical moment. Monica did not carry a gun. At the moment, the hand of the Apostle Carrot, as pale as a dry bone, has already reached out to the county below. Ah. Li Zi protected Josie and looked up at the Apostle Keela, who was swooping down. A dim light flashed across those deep eyes, and there was no panic on his face, but the arc of his mouth revealed contempt and disdain. It came just in time. Big brother, I'm afraid. The young Josie in her arms curled up, her immature face full of fear. Don't worry. Li Zi said a word of reassurance. Raising his head to look directly at the swooping Apostle Carrot, there was no fear on his face, but a disdainful smile on the corner of his mouth. A yellow-skinned monkey who doesn't know the heights of the sky and the earth. The Apostle Keela sneered. The surrounding black mist was hazy. Whoosh. The black mist condensed into giant bats, and it seemed like a dark cloud suddenly swept down. The huge wings fluttered, blowing bursts of neighing cold wind. Wrapped in the black mist, Carrot stretched out his arm and made the same movement with the black bat, grabbing Li Zi suddenly and holding him up. James Wu and Monica next to them didn't have time to react. They looked up and saw the black bat flying to the highest point of the hall, overlooking the bottom. Let go of Li Zi. The red light that Wanda turned into fell on Li Zi's previous position. There was no coldness on her face before, and her jewel-like eyes revealed fear. Hurry up and let Li Zi go. The witch's breathing gradually became rapid, and the scarlet power radiated from her eyes and hands. It was as if her mood at the moment distorted the space, showing a broken shape visible to the naked eye. Haha, you're scared. You're scared. The Apostle Keela watched all this condescendingly, with a deformed and rampant smile on his pale face. Immediately, his eyes suddenly became fierce, What are you afraid of? You have the best magical energy in the world. But you are hiding in a small town, playing house with an ordinary person. Stupid, it would be better to sacrifice Chaos Force to the Supreme Lord Mephisto. Apostle Carrot's cold voice echoed in the hall. Wanda, don't pay attention to him, this guy is just pretending to be a tiger. At this time, Li Zi, who was carried by the black bat, shouted loudly. Shut up, you have a lot of guts, but unfortunately it doesn't change anything. The Apostle Carrot was surprised by the psychological quality of this oriental man. As he spoke, a sharp sword appeared in his left hand, pointing at Li Zi's neck. Courage is given by strength. Li Zi responded lightly. Ah, Apostle K sneered disdainfully, ignored it, and turned his head to look at the crimson figure in the distance again. Wanda, I'll give you a minute to sacrifice myself among the pillars. Otherwise, when the time is up, the head will fall to the ground. As he spoke, he waved the long sword in his hand, waves of black aura rippling, and let out terrifying roars of evil spirits. You. Wanda took a deep breath and looked at Li Zi under the black bat, her white hands were trembling. It was the helplessness and fear in my heart, and I was afraid that the tragedy that had happened before my eyes would happen again. And it was she who caused this situation again. If she hadn't brought Li Zi here, such a thing wouldn't have happened. Don't waste time, there are 2 more magicians outside. The Apostle Keela glanced at the gate, and urged in a cold voice. Hey, you're scaring my witch. Li Zi noticed Wanda's slightly trembling hands, and his originally indifferent eyes became cold. A cloud of chaos magical energy gathered in the palm of the back. That mass of black energy was exactly the content of the first chapter in the Dark God book yesterday. Able to annihilate the souls of living beings. The reason why he only uses it now is because this move can only be used in close combat, and it cannot be used at long distances, and other moves cannot be used openly. We can only wait for this guy to deliver it to the door in person. Hee, soon she will belong to Lord Mephisto. Apostle Carrot sneered. However, he still doesn't know this sentence, which is far more serious than the contempt and disdain towards Li Zi before. Josie, don't close your ears. Li Zi said solemnly to the little girl in his arms. Josie just nodded. Buzz buzz. Li Zi's outstretched hand behind his back instantly gathered a cloudy energy ball, and swung it towards the Apostle Carrot above. The energy ball, carrying mighty energy, a space world, caused the original complete hall to shake violently. James Wu, who was secretly changing magazines, was stunned when he saw this scene. How can he know magic? Wanda, did you teach him? At the same time, he also felt very embarrassed. He mentioned it many times before, and felt that Li Zi was an ordinary person and would get in the way. In the end, after a long time, this guy is just pretending? He can do magic, but he just wants to wait until the end? Seeing this scene, James Wu felt countless grass and mud horses galloping in his heart at the moment. It turns out that Joker has only him from the beginning to the end, this cowardly agent. Plum? Wanda stood there a little at a loss, looking up with a pair of beautiful eyes like a lake of clear water. She felt the breath of the Dark God's calligraphy technique. And that energy is far stronger than yesterday's. At the moment, above the sky, Fack. The Apostle Carrot felt the power of the oncoming attack, and his face suddenly changed. He hurriedly waved the black bat to close its wings, trying to resist the impact of the energy ball. Next second. Boom. The terrifying energy ball gathered by magic crashed on the black mist. A huge amount of roars suddenly resounded through the hall, and huge amounts of sound echoed. Then a strong gust of wind swept out, and that gust of wind was almost materialized, causing the hall to be filled with dust and mist, flying sand and rocks. Bang kai. The entire huge amounts of hall shook, and layers of dust fell from the ceiling. The remaining huge stone pillar in the center collapsed suddenly. Everyone hide. James Wu came back to his senses, opened his mouth and yelled, telling others to find cover to hide, and he ate a mouthful of ashes as soon as he said a few words. Without waiting for him to run back behind the desk. The strong wind had already overturned him, and he lay on the ground looking at the crumbling hall, muttering, Bodhisattva bless, I don't want to be buried in another world. Plum. The other side. Wanda looked at the space filled with black mist, her pretty face was tense and her white forehead was covered with sweat. Her scarlet power instantly condensed into a protective cover, and flew towards the direction of the strong wind. But she didn't wait for her to fly over. At this time, the whole hall shook violently, and then not only the hall was shaking. The entire space is shaking violently, and the surrounding environment is breaking, and every place around is bumping. It seems that it may collapse at any time, and everyone will fall into the void at that time. This place is going to collapse. When Wanda saw this scene, this idea immediately came to her mind. Whoosh. Just when she was in a trance, That group of black mist, where Li Zi and the Apostle Carrot fought, suddenly swept out a terrifying power zone. That force unreasonably lifted Wanda into the air, smashed it to the ground, and the bricks shattered, cracks spread like spider webs. Huge amounts of impact force also made her pass out. And the other people in the hall were also swept away, and the strong impact made everyone fall into a coma. At this moment, the closed door of the main hall suddenly opened. Bang. Wong, I'm right, Mephisto's apostles always like to hide in different dimensions. At the gate, two magicians in cloaks walked in one behind the other. Call me Sorcerer Supreme. Wong looked dissatisfied, and actually asked Stephen to find the site of the Mephisto apostle first every time. Whoosh. The strong wind that suddenly hit their faces, mixed with thick dust, made the two shut their mouths immediately. Cough cough cough. I have a bad feeling. Wong coughed violently and waved his hand in front of him. A golden light gradually dissipated the dust in front of his eyes. Wong, you were right this time. This place is going to collapse. Stephen looked slightly stunned, looked up at the ceiling, and found that the space was crumbling and gradually being broken down. Then he looked at the black mist again. His sharp eyes glowed with golden light, and through the black mist, he saw two figures exuding terrifying energy, constantly destroying the surrounding space. And one of the figures made Stephen look even more dignified. He seemed to feel a powerful magical power, even far surpassing the deceased Ancient One magician. Buzz buzz. At the moment, the space where the entire hall was located trembled violently, and the floor tiles under their feet gradually collapsed, revealing a void of nothingness and whiteness. Who is that? Stephen locked the figure in the black mist, and he knew that it must be one of the two who caused all this. Obviously, the Oriental man is the most suspect. He felt unprecedented powerful energy from this person, but the next second that energy was fleeting, as if it had never been there before. It even makes people wonder if it is an illusion. Stephen, the situation is not good, we have to take these people out quickly. Wong looked around and thousands of people fell unconscious on the ground. If the space completely collapsed, they would fall into the void with the physical body of ordinary people. I am afraid that it will be directly torn apart by the hurricane, and this space will also disappear with the passage of time. Well, it's important to save people first. Stephen withdrew his gaze from the black mist, planning to transfer people away with the king first. Using the portal, I always think this is definitely the greatest spell. Wong yelled, and the sling ring of his wrist was glowing with golden light, drawing a circle under several unconscious people. Whoosh. A portal emerged, and several people just fell directly into the circle below them, which was the cold forest outside. At present, any portal is the fastest and safest way. There are thousands of people, but they can't recite all of them. There are too many people. Seeing this, Stephen also sent people out one by one. At this time, he noticed a crimson figure lying not far away, recognized Scarlet Witch, and said in surprise, Wanda. Cough cough cough. Wanda, who was in a coma, coughed a few times, slowly opened her eyes and woke up. Stephen, why are you here? She held her forehead and just finished speaking. She immediately remembered her current situation, and raised her head to look at Hei Lu above the center of the hall. Two figures could still be felt in the black mist. She couldn't help but heaved a sigh of relief, but at the same time she was shocked. Although Li Zi used all the magic in the Dark God book, she had seen it in a rough reading, but can a beginner really have such a continuous high-energy explosion? Boom. But the thought was only fleeting, because the violent shaking of the main hall interrupted Wang Da's thoughts. Although the situation is a bit complicated to explain, and I am also puzzled why you are here, so it is best for us to go out first and find a coffee shop to sit down and talk. Stephen panted heavily, and cooperated with Wong to send most of the people out. Now only Wanda is left in the hall, and a few victims of the dream. I'm going to save Li first. Wanda looked towards the direction of the black mist, and then condensed chaos force into the air, flying towards the center of the hall. Hey, Wanda. Don't go there. The space is unstable over there. Stephen saw this scene and hurriedly yelled. He perceived that the space in the central area was like thin paper. It may collapse at any time due to the impact of waves. But Wanda is eager to save people now. Seeing that Li Zi has not come out, her fair and pretty face is full of anxiety, and she directly ignores Dr. Strange's words. However, the next second, boom, the black mist gathered and scattered suddenly, and a raging energy storm swept out, rolling like a wave. The instant the mist gathered and dispersed, three figures descended one after another. Plum. Wanda saw the falling figures at a glance. It was Li Zi and Chao Qian, both of whom fell into a coma. Seeing this, she hurriedly waved her hand, wrapping the two of them with her scarlet force. On the other side, Wang saw that the ground was spreading and collapsing at a speed visible to the naked eye. He clenched his fists and drew a circle while shouting, "Stephen, the ground has collapsed. Open the portal wider and send them all out." "We should have done that earlier." Stephen gritted his teeth, and with both hands, the bright golden light filled the space. Following this, the lower part of the entire hall was covered by a golden portal, and the portal followed Stephen's hands up. Whoosh. Don't wait for other people in the space to react. In an instant, everyone was brought back to the cold forest outside. The original church is still there, but the open door is a real scene. Everything is back to normal and it is no longer an entrance to a different space. The people who had been teleported here before fell to pieces on the grass. The cold wind blowing did not wake them up. Bang. Call. Seeing that she was safe, Wanda breathed a sigh of relief. Her hands glowed scarlet. She held Li Zi and Chao Qian in the air, and put them on the grass. As soon as she put it down, she came to Li Zi's side, frowned and touched the man's pale face distress-edly, took off the windbreaker and covered him. And tried to call softly. "Li." Her cautious voice trembled a little, as if she was afraid of something. Cough cough cough. Li Zi lying on the ground coughed a few times as if hearing a response. In fact, he is fine at all. Even if he uses the technique he just learned yesterday to deal with an apostle of Mephisto, it is still a breeze for him. After all, the technique is new, but his foundation is stronger than that of Wanda and Stephen. Seeing Dr. Strange Stephen appear, worried that this shrewd guy would become suspicious, and planned to pretend. So as not to be too strong to be suspected. But Li Zi couldn't pretend when she heard her witch's tone was very sad. After coughing lightly for a moment, he slowly opened his eyes. "Wanda, I'm fine. I was just a little tired just now." As he spoke, he was about to sit up. "Don't move and don't talk." Wanda hurriedly supported him, looked at the pale man. Her eyelashes trembled slightly and her eyes flushed unconsciously. "Your complexion is so bad, don't be brave." "Then you should go and see Josie anyway." As soon as Li Zi got ready, he was held down by the witch's white hand, and he pointed to Chao Qian beside him helplessly. "She's fine, I've checked." Wanda had already perceived Josie. "The little girl was just asleep, she's fine, but you seem to have lost half your life." "Who said it, for it?" Li Zi grabbed the witch's hand and felt it was tender and smooth. "If you don't believe me, let's try it on the bed when we get back later." "Shush. You're talking nonsense again." Wanda blushed when she heard this, covered his mouth, glanced at Josie who was narrating, and was relieved to see that she was still sleeping soundly. "Witch. I'm not talking nonsense." Seeing the shy look of the witch, Li Zi couldn't help but want to continue teasing. "Wanda, is he the apostle of Mephisto?" At this moment, footsteps interrupted the two of them. It was Dr. Strange Stephen. He walked over and pointed to the man in black robe in the distance. He actually came out too. When Wanda heard this, she turned her head to look, her expression watery. The apostle Carrot also fell into the portal and escaped together. But at the moment Carrot was completely unconscious and motionless. From my judgment, he should be the apostle of Nightmare. Stephen noticed Wanda's emotions and couldn't help raising his eyebrows. Scarlet Witch hasn't felt this angry for anyone in a long time. It seems that this man is not simple. Then he looked at Li Zi, stretched out his hand politely and said with a smile, "Are you a couple now?" Ahem, cough. "Yes, hello, I'm Li Zi, Wanda's boyfriend." Li Zi met Stephen's gaze, smiled on his pale and weak face, coughed violently and stretched out his hand politely. "Hi, I'm Stephen. They all like to call me Dr. Strange." Stephen said, holding Li Zi's hand tightly. Buzz. His fingertips radiated imperceptible energy instantly, which was constantly poured into Li Zi's palm, exploring every part of his body. This is Stephen's newly learned magic, which can explore the body and even the mind of the contact. Just now, the powerful aura he perceived on Li Zi in a different space is still fresh in his memory. That is a powerful aura far surpassing that of Ancient One magician. Thinking. Whoosh, next second. Stephen's eyes suddenly went blank, and he successfully entered Li Zi's spiritual world. In the middle of the white spiritual world, a group of terrifying black aura gathered there, exuding a creepy aura. The power of evil spirits contained in it makes devil-like roars at all times. Just looking at it from a distance makes people feel a chill rushing to the top of their heads. Stephen stood still, his handsome face full of shock. As if seeing something unbelievable, the corners of his mouth twitched slightly, and he squeezed out a sentence. "My God, what is that? My God, what is that?" In the white spiritual world, Stephen stood there in a daze, his handsome face full of shock. It was as if he had seen something unbelievable. In the distance, as the angle of view zoomed in, a group of terrifying black aura gathered there, and the turbulent black mist exuded a creepy atmosphere. The power of evil spirits contained in it makes devil-like roars at all times. Sure enough, this guy is a magician. Stephen was talking to himself. Whoosh. Suddenly, the cloud of black mist surged up and climbed up, and the entire spiritual world trembled violently. Discovered? Seeing this, Stephen immediately realized that he was probably noticed. So I closed my eyes, took a deep breath and wanted to return to the spiritual world. Although the outside world may only have passed for a few seconds, it would be embarrassing if I was caught. However, when he opened his eyes again, he found that the world around him was still white, and his heart tightened. The biggest disadvantage of this technique is that if the opponent's mind is strong enough, it can trap the user's soul in the spiritual world forever, while the physical body in the real world will be reduced to an empty shell. Stephen took a deep breath and closed his eyes tightly, trying to break free again. But when he opened his eyes, there was still an unchanging white world around him, and he couldn't hear the sound of the outside world. For a moment, he was a little panicked. Originally he just wanted to test it out. Instead, he was imprisoned by the opponent. Damn it. At this moment, the entire spiritual world trembled. Stephen looked up and looked around. I saw that the black mist at the moment rising in the distance had swept in, covered half of the sky, and condensed into an oriental dragon in the blink of an eye. The carved dragon was lifelike, swooping down towards Stephen's abyss-like mouth. Fact. Stephen knew that everything was not true, but he had the overwhelming coercion brought by the dragon, as well as suffocating fear, both creepy. Next second, the dragon had already opened its huge mouth to swallow him, and then his eyes suddenly went black. The cold air is always wrapped around the whole body, like falling into a cold abyss. There is no end in sight, falling all the way down, and you can't see the end at a glance. Stephen has never felt this kind of fear, even knowing that everything is false. But it kept hitting his heart. Meanwhile, the real world. Stephen. Wanda next to her watched the two men hold each other for a few seconds without separating, and frowned slightly. But when she had Stephen's absent-minded eyes, and Li Zi's equally stiff eyes, the witch's face suddenly turned cold, and scarlet power gathered in her palm, and she slammed on Stephen's body, saying coldly, "Stephen, wake up." Stephen's lifeless eyes suddenly woke up. He shook off the hand he was holding for the first time, and took a few steps back in shock. He propped his legs on his hands and panted heavily. Sweat dripped from his forehead, as if he had just experienced a nightmare. Cough, cough, cough. At the same time, Li Zi also came back to his senses. His pale face looked even more haggard. "Li, are you okay?" Seeing his expression, Wanda touched his hand distress-edly. "Your hands are so cold." Li Zi coughed weakly, with a blank face. What happened just now? I seem to have a nightmare." "It's Stephen." When Wanda heard this, her cold eyes fell on Stephen, who was gasping for breath. Next second. Whoosh. The witch's crimson figure flashed and turned into a gust of red wind. She came to Stephen in an instant, and stretched out her hand to grab the other's neck. "Bring it up now." "Ahem, Wanda, listen to my explanation." Stephen met Wanda with frosty, emotionless eyes, and suddenly had a bad feeling. Scarlet Witch in a runaway state is not easy to deal with. "Stephen, we are friends. I hope you can be friends, but why don't you respect Li Zi?" Wanda got angry. Her charming eyes glowed with a terrifying scarlet light. "I know you want to test his background, but you shouldn't hurt him." As she spoke, the witch's fingers tightened a little. "Wanda. You listen to me, I really didn't do anything, just took a look." Stephen knew he was in the wrong, not sure. But in fact, he was very confused, and he just wanted to test Li Zi's background. In fact, the person who got hurt was clearly me, okay? Until now, he still hasn't recovered from the fear just now, and that chilling feeling has been lingering in his heart from the beginning to the end. I'm fine. Stephen didn't do it on purpose. Let him go. Li Zi felt very warm when he saw the witch's behavior, but he didn't like to see the witch like this. Similar dirty work is still left to men to do. I still like that witch who is kind and sweet. Boom. Never again. Wanda heard Li Zi's words, and realized that she was a little impulsive, and her image looked too scary. So he quickly dropped Stephen in his hand. "Sorry, it was an accident this time." Stephen touched La Hong's neck, feeling very complicated. He didn't expect Wanda to be so angry for Li Zi. At this time, he thought of the black mist in the spiritual world again, and he didn't plan to take care of this matter. You can see the intimate behavior of Wanda and Li Zi. Stephen felt the need to find out, lest Wanda be deceived. Thinking of him, he looked at Li Zi and said slowly, "Actually, I have something to ask. In your spiritual world just now, I saw a cloud of black mist exuding the breath of black magic. Do you practice black magic?" Li Zi was stunned when he heard this, and replied, I don't know, maybe it's just learning the Dark God book, maybe it's backlash. The reason why I said that was actually to wash away Stephen's suspicion of himself. Put all your attention on the Book of Darkness. Wait a minute, you said you practiced the Dark Divine Book. Really? Stephen caught the most crucial word, the Book of Darkness, and hurriedly asked. The Dark God book we found in a black magician. Next to Wanda explained. You too, that's not a good thing. I admit that the Dark Divine Book can bring powerful power to practitioners, making it worse than flying. After hearing this, Stephen frowned and said solemnly, but I read in ancient books before that some people became sacrifices to the ancient god Sithorn after practicing the Dark God book. What? Wanda's beautiful eyes were slightly startled, and her face was full of shock. Definitely that is just a legend, no one is sure if it is a real event, but no one can guarantee 100% that it will not happen. Stephen explained, recalling being in church earlier. The terrifying strength displayed by Li Zi, as well as the black mist seen in the spiritual world, are most likely related to the Dark Divine Book. After all, an ordinary person can possess such terrifying strength. The only thing that can be explained is the cultivation of the Dark Divine Book. The Dark Divine Book, to be honest, it's not a good thing. King Magician, who had been checking whether the sleepwalker was injured, strode over when he heard these words. As an old magician, his experience is far higher than that of Dr. Strange Stephen, so he naturally knows the Dark God Book. Then his eyes fell on Wanda, and he continued, but Scarlet Witch, you have Chaos Force, so it shouldn't be a problem to practice the Dark Divine Book. But Li Zi, you should stop practicing, King Magician said seriously. Hear what the two said. Uh-huh. Wanda nodded. After all, Kamar Taj can be said to be the most powerful and righteous magician organization on Earth, and they will not deceive them in this regard at all. What's more, in fact, the witch also knows in her heart that after coming into contact with the Dark Book last night, I already felt the breath of black magic. Li Zi, can you tell me how long you have been practicing this book, Dark God? Stephen looked puzzled, and then stated the purpose. If you have been in contact for too long, it is best to perform an exorcism to make Sithorn's soul abandon you. It is indeed necessary. Wong Magician nodded. Judging from what they saw in the different space before, they both believed that Li Zi had been practicing the Dark God book for a long time. This will seriously affect a person's mind, and the rumored sacrificial event may also occur. However, Li Zi's answer stunned the two magicians. Just learned last night. Wait a minute, did you learn this dark book last night? Which chapter did you learn? Stephen was shocked, and even wondered if he heard it wrong. I just practiced the Dark Divine Book last night, and today I can nuclear explode a different space? As Kamar Taj's most talented Stephen in the past century, he naturally felt that it was impossible, and he said again, Li, this matter is very serious, please don't joke. I'm telling the truth, the Dark Divine Book I just found yesterday. Li Zi is too lazy to lie, anyway, ability exposure does not count as exposure. Besides, if he doesn't say it, he will say it. Li didn't lie, he learned it with me yesterday, but he learned it at a glance. As Wanda said, she hugged Li Zi proudly. Li Zi has extraordinary abilities. This is impossible. Stephen felt that his worldview was shattered. Many years ago, Ancient One Magician said that he was already a genius among geniuses. But now I have encountered a more perverted one. Unwilling to give up, he asked, which article did you learn? Half of learning. When I dealt with Carrot just now, I used all my skills, all of which were from the Dark God book. Li Zi's words. It was like a hammer smashing Stephen's proud self-esteem into pieces. Although the first half of the Dark God book can be relatively simple, even if it takes a day to learn the first half, the ability is still monstrous. It should be clear that when he learned the Sling Ring Arbitrary Door, he spent 3 full days. Stephen, admit it, there are a lot of geniuses in the world. Seeing Stephen's constipated look, Wong burst out laughing. Then he looked at Li Zi, smiled and said, are you interested in going to Kamar Taj to learn magic? No, the witch told me to go to Kamar Taj to have no distractions and not think about anything. I still yearn for freedom. Li Zi shook his head and went to Kamar Taj to make some jokes. I went to that place to accompany a group of old men, and I got up every morning to practice against the cold wind, and I got up early all day long, so I couldn't even touch a woman's little hands. Sleeping at night has to be squeezed into a dormitory, and the environment is closed all year round. He was really worried that if he slept there without his back facing the wall, someone would hit him hard at night. Don't think about it, Li wants to stay with me. Wanda hugged Li Zi and declared her sovereignty to Fatty Wong. My lord, everyone has his own aspirations, don't persuade others. Stephen coughed a few times and said so. Actual. It's a pity in his heart, a good magician, walking on the right path, will make them a group of magicians who walk between dimensions every day easier. Otherwise, like the Ancient One magician, alone, he has worked hard all his life until he dies before he can rest in peace. Cough cough cough. At this time, the Apostle Keela, who fell on the ground not far away, woke up. Holding his torn body, he slowly got up from the ground. As soon as he stood up staggeringly, he met several pairs of indifferent gazes. Among them was a crimson figure, whose gaze made the scalp tingle even more. It's like Satan coming out of hell. Everyone has something to say. The Apostle Keela was discouraged, and staggered and sat back on the ground begging for mercy. Witch, give him to Stephen to deal with. Seeing the hostility in the witch's eyes, Li Zi quickly held her white and smooth little hand, and said softly, I still like fragrant and soft witches, cold ones don't look good. Wanda nodded obediently, and looked at Carrot meaningfully before retracting her gaze. Kamar Taj does have a specific penal code against evil magicians. You too. See you when you have time, I will take you away first. Stephen's fingertips glowed with golden light. He bound Carrot with binding magic, and looked around, seeing unconscious sleepwalkers all over the place. The rest of the people here are left to you. Stephen, we have to go to the west to find the Sterling magician. Wang reminded. Almost forgot about them. With one word to another, the two drew out the dimension portal and left with the Apostle Carrot. Not long after Li Zi and Wanda stayed where they were, the agents of the Tianjian Bureau rushed to the scene, and the director Hayward also arrived at the scene in person. This matter has too much influence, and too many people are missing. And it was too weird, and the superiors attached great importance to it, so Hayward had to come in person. Then Li Zi and the two briefly explained what happened. After sending Josie home, they also left in a hurry. Go home. Comfortable. As soon as Li Zi walked into the living room, she couldn't wait to jump onto the soft sofa, taking a deep breath with exhaustion written all over her face. He is indeed a little tired. If the master is tired, he is a little drowsy. Li, are you sure you're okay? Wanda looked at the man with a bad face. Qing Sheng's tone was full of distress. It's okay, just get some sleep. Li Zi said with a relaxed face, Witch, don't think so much, I'll take a shower first, and sleep together later to recover blood. He stretched and stood up. Kissing the witch's forehead as white as jade, she took her clothes and turned into the bathroom. In the living room, it's all my fault. Wanda thought of Li Zi's relaxed expression just now, and felt even more uncomfortable. With his personality, the more uncomfortable he is, the more he has to pretend to be nonchalant. Hateful Apostle Kla. The witch thought of the Apostle Carla, who was taken away by Stephen, and she clenched her hands involuntarily. A cold light flashed in her eyes. Then she was wrapped in scarlet light and disappeared in place. A red light outside the house flew towards the west of the town. However, the red light disappeared behind the horizon. The bathroom door opened. Hey, the witch is really disobedient. It was Li Zi. He stood by the door and looked at the empty living room, shaking his head helplessly. He knew Wanda would look for Carrot. A witch doesn't tolerate anyone hurting someone she cares about. Even Stephen was almost beaten up today. Sick little witch, how could you let your hands be stained with blood? He said. With a wave of his hand, strips of black cloth were wrapped around his body, and then gathered into a black ancient-style black dress. The whole person flickered with the bathroom light and turned black in an instant. The figure in black and ancient-style black clothes disappeared with the darkness. West District of Zijing Town. As the night approached the early morning, the town was immersed in silence. The cold streets were deserted, and the lights of the roadside shops were almost turned off. Only one tavern sign was still lit, and the colorful lights reflected the water-stained road surface, setting off sparkling waves. In the tavern, you didn't take back that dark book? Master Sterling listened to Stephen and told about Li Zi and Wanda's cultivation of the Dark God book. His expression was serious. In the impression of the big magicians of Kamar Taj's older generation, all those who practice black magic are members of a cult who do all kinds of evil. Master Sterling, it's 2024 now, as long as black magic doesn't have backlash effects, good or bad has nothing to do with people. In front of the bar, Stephen took a sip of wine, put down his glass and said nothing. Others don't know, but as a direct disciple of Ancient One, he naturally knows that in the eyes of outsiders, he is the sorcerer supreme who stands tall above Shangwei Guangzhong. In fact, he is also practicing black magic, absorbing the power zone that is unique to Mephisto. However, Ancient One did not fall because of this, but used black magic to fight against the invasion of Dimension Mephisto. It was also from then on that Stephen felt that as long as he practiced black magic and did not do evil, it didn't matter if he practiced day and night. But I personally feel that Sterling touched the goatee, still feeling a shock in his heart. Sterling is a great magician. Li Zi has already learned most of it, and the content is probably memorized in his mind. Even if he takes back the Book of Darkness, it is useless. Wang Sheng was afraid that the old man would continue to babble, so he interrupted him directly. Sterling was stunned as he stroked his goatee hand, his slightly narrowed eyes widened, and he trembled in disbelief. What? He has already learned most of it. Didn't you say he just got it yesterday? Well, I haven't read the Dark God book, but I don't think the content of that book is very simple. Wang nodded, and now he mentioned the fat face still revealing emotion. He has learned almost the same. Sterling walked back and forth in front of the bar with trembling hands. Then he pointed at the two with their beards raised, and said angrily, "You guys, I'm so mad. Big Sterling magician, this kind of thing." Stephen, who was drinking, was stunned. It was the first time he saw Sterling so angry. He didn't expect the old man to be so resistant to black magic. Wang next to him also coughed a few times, thinking about explaining. "In fact, we can." "Shut up first. I'm angry that you didn't bring people. Such talents should be brought to Kamar Taj. Let me teach them, and I will definitely become a generation of great magicians, and even the next Sorcerer Supreme." Master Sterling stroked his goatee, gritted his teeth with hatred for iron. Stephen and Wang froze immediately. It turned out that the old man was angry about this matter, and he was not still talking about black magic before. As a result, now that you see someone's ability, you want to earn money as an apprentice? Bah. What a shameless old thief with double standards. Li Zi doesn't want to go to Kamar Taj at all, and not everyone in the world wants to be a monk. Stephen coughed a few times, speechless, but such a talent. Oh. The magician Sterling didn't know what to say, so he sighed several times. Express his current mood. Bang. While the three were chatting, there was a loud noise from the second floor, and the ceiling trembled and some dust fell. What happened? When Wang heard the movement, he slapped the table and stood up. Sorcerer Supreme, that apostle has escaped. A magician staggered and ran downstairs with a panicked expression. Damn it, Stephen, your binding power can't even trap an apostle. Wang casually drew out the dimension portal, and seeing that the second floor was really empty, he was a little angry. We should bring people back to Kamar Taj first. Stephen felt a burst of heat on his face, and he was unlucky at home today. First, he was backlashed in Li Zi's spiritual world, and now the apostle escaped because of his mistake. Stop talking nonsense, hurry up and chase. The magician Sterling put out spells with both hands, and a golden light flew out from his fingertips, chasing after the breath of the apostle, sinking into the dark street. Seeing this, several people didn't delay any longer, and all chased after Jin Guang. If the apostle really escaped, he would have to try to find him later. It's harder than climbing to the sky. At the same time, on a dark and damp street, a cloud of black mist suddenly appeared at the corner of the street, and in the blink of an eye, the black mist condensed into a human form. It was the apostle Carrot who had just escaped from the tavern. Ha ha ha, some Kamar Taj jokers are trying to catch me. After Kara glanced at it, she couldn't help raising her head and laughing triumphantly. Goodbye, everyone. For a moment, he put away his smile, his eyes became fierce and he glanced at Dongbian Township. His tone was full of coldness and hostility. Boy, wait for me to come back, mix the magic book of darkness, all your women will become the tribute of Lord Mephisto. Just now I learned from Dr. Strange that Li Zi also has a dark gentleman, which made him very excited. No dark magician can resist the power brought by the dark book. Not to mention the dark god book, plus origin magic power. No need to wait, we can solve the problem now. However, at this moment, an extra shadow appeared behind him at some unknown time. Accompanied by a cold and hoarse voice sounded. The surrounding air seemed to drop suddenly, and the space seemed to turn into an ice cave in an instant. The apostle Carrot's figure froze in place, and an inexplicable chill rushed from the soles of her feet to the top of her head. He glanced at Shadow, then turned his head to look backward. It's you. We have a bill to settle. It was Li Zi who came, and he had already taken off his mask. A pair of deep eyes with a cold gleam, like Satan walking out of hell. Damn. Apostle Carrot clenched his fists tightly, and a group of black aura condensed. But next second, on the opposite side, Li Zi, who was dressed in black, suddenly started, turning into an afterimage like a cheetah stepping out, without giving him any chance to react. In an instant, the fist had already swung. Boom. The moment the powerful punch was released, it drove the surrounding air to form a huge cyclone, rippling in the narrow streets. A strong gust of wind rattled the windows on both sides. Some windows were directly shattered. What? The Apostle Carrot felt his eyes go dark, and his body fell uncontrollably. The uncontrolled body hit the wall like a cannonball. Bang! The wall suddenly cracked with huge amounts of spider web cracks. The entire wall was crumbling, as if it might collapse at any time. Cough, cough, cough. The Apostle Carrot collapsed on the ground and was dying. He coughed violently and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. The place where he was hit on his chest showed an obvious depression. He tried his best to stand up, but the bones in his body seemed to be crushed, and he couldn't exert any strength at all. At this time, Li Zi came over and knelt down, pressing one hand on his head. Waste, how dare you covet my witch? The tone is neither heavy nor light, but it sounds particularly cold. Chilling. Let me go. The pupils of the Apostle Keela trembled, and he looked at the Eastern man in front of him in fear. I won't kill you, neither will the magician of Kamar Taj let you go. As he spoke, Li Zi exerted a slight force on his fingers, and the magic runes lit up, and the force continued to increase, squeezing the head of the Apostle Carrot. Creak. With the sound of tearing, the Apostle Carrot felt a pool of warm blood on his forehead. And the strength is still increasing. Whoosh. Hey. Let him go. At this time, several figures appeared from the entrance of the alley on the left. It was Stephen. He strode over and waved his hands, a magic shield condensed on his fists, and said loudly, Sorry buddy, he is a prisoner of Kamar Taj. But he's in my hands now. The instant Li Zi turned his head, the mask appeared on his face. Immediately, he grabbed the Apostle Carrot and lifted it up. Having said that, everything should be said first come first served. Wong stepped forward and said slowly, Besides, he is the Apostle of Mephisto. If you kill him like this, you will be targeted by Mephisto. I do not mind. Li Zi doesn't care. He is too lazy to listen to the nonsense of some people, so he tightens his fingers decisively. However, he felt an invisible barrier restricting his fingers, and he couldn't press them down for a long time. Li Zi was puzzled. When he saw a subtle scarlet light, the corners of his mouth under the mask couldn't help but draw a curve. Turn your head and look towards the alley entrance on the right. Sure enough, a crimson figure was walking towards this side, and she was raising one hand towards this side, glowing with bright scarlet light. Instantly illuminate the dim street, covering the street with a layer of light red gauze. Black Shadow, let him go. Wanda's eyes were cold and her tone was devoid of any emotion. Those who hurt Li Zi must solve it with their own hands. Wanda? Didn't you hand over the Apostle Carrot to us? Stephen saw that the witch was confused. What's going on? A Mephisto apostle can be robbed. It seems that the performance of the magicians is not very good. They even have their eyes on the Mephisto apostle. Wong next to him complained. That's what Li said, not me. Wanda glanced at him and said slowly, So you'd better listen to your boyfriend, and children who don't obey will be punished. After seeing the witch, Li Zi's mood was not as cold as before, and his tone was not consciously softer, and he habitually joked. Give him to me. It doesn't matter if you don't say anything. Wanda reacted after hearing this, and rushed back by herself. If Li Zi takes a shower, she will be angry if she doesn't see her. No, Li Zi shook his head and tightened his fingers. Click. The Apostle Carrot, who was dying in his hand, didn't even have a chance to struggle. His neck suddenly tilted, and his frightened eyes lost their light. Completely lost breath. Seeing this, Wanda was so angry that she couldn't speak, so she swung her right hand vigorously. A burst of scarlet chaos energy spewed out, and the bright scarlet light illuminated the alley, blasting towards the man in black ancient costume in front of him. Murder your own husband. Startled, Li Zi dropped the corpse in his hand and hid to the side. Boom. The scarlet power carrying terrifying power hit the corpse on the ground, instantly annihilating the corpse and turning it into dust. Really? He looked at the pile of ashes and glanced in the direction of the witch. There was no one at the entrance of the alley. Next second. Whoosh. A crimson figure suddenly appeared behind him. The left hand gathered the raging scarlet power, and suddenly swung towards him with little power. But the scarlet power vibrates the space. Wanda. Calm down. Fortunately, Li Zi reacted quickly enough, and his body turned into a black aura and collapsed. In an instant. Recondensed into a human form not far from the witch. Bang. Wanda punched nothing and landed on the wall. Immediately many bricks fell off one after another and smashed to pieces. There was a cloud of dust. Opposite the alley. The Kamar Taj trio who had been standing watching the battle quickly took a few steps back to avoid being affected. Is this origin magic power? Among them, Grand Magician Sterling felt the light shining on his face, his pupils trembling slightly. That's right, she has chaos force inside her. Stephen nodded in response. It seems that the man in black is going to suffer. Sterling muttered the big magician. I haven't seen this person before, but it seems to be a new superhero who has become popular on INS recently. Stephen looked at the masked man in black, and he finally remembered, the new superhero that has become popular these days. Isn't it this guy? Interesting. The Black Shadow seems to be a magician. Shall we try to persuade them to fight? Wang said. No, Wang Yin is free. Stephen knew that Wanda wanted to vent her dissatisfaction at most, and would not do anything too extreme. Although those few blows were powerful, Wanda didn't make any fatal attacks, and the speed of his shots was much slower than usual, giving Sombra a chance to react. Boom. At the moment, Wanda spread her hands out and the palms were continuously gathering, a stream of bright scarlet light. She stretched out her hand towards the broken bricks on the ground, and pulled hard. Whoosh. The bricks split into sharp pieces, shooting towards Li Zi's position overwhelmingly. Chi 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 chi. Seeing this, Li Zi turned into a black aura again to avoid the attack, and the sharp fragments hit the ground, and the stone brick floor was hit and riddled with holes. The witch is on top. He felt that the witch's mood fluctuated greatly, and now she didn't really do it, and every move was half a beat slower, obviously to vent her emotions. But if the fight goes on, the witch will probably do it. What is the word called? It's getting stronger. Thinking about it, Li Zi didn't stay any longer. He jumped onto a billboard on the second floor, bathed in moonlight, overlooking the crimson figure in the alley. Come down. Wanda said coldly. Sorry, we are opponents now. Li Zi shook his head, then waved and shouted. Wanda, you need to calm down, we will meet again next time. Almost forgot. There is also King Doctor Strange, and there is another one I don't know. Goodbye everyone. As he spoke, he turned his back and jumped towards the sky. But this is the move. Wanda, who originally planned to use the scarlet power to pull the Black Shadow down, was stunned. The witch's cold eyes gradually became clear. She squinted slightly to see her back disappearing into the sky, and it took a long time to look away thoughtfully. Wanda, what's the matter? Stephen, who came over, wondered. It's nothing, I'll go back first. The words fell. Wanda was surrounded by scarlet light, soaring into the sky and flying towards the east. Recalling the back just now in her mind, she felt more and more familiar, because that back looked very much like Li Zi. Yes, very similar. She was stunned just now because the back of the black figure coincided with the back of Li Zi in her mind in a trance. Could it be him? No. Li Mingming is taking a shower in the bathroom, and the shadow is going to the west, not the direction of home. In the sky, Wanda, who flew to the community apartment, talked to herself. But the thoughts in my mind couldn't help being interrupted. Because the witch thought that she could sneak out. Then Li Zi can also sneak out after she leaves. And the back looks so similar. If it is true, why did Li Zi hide himself? Just for the origin magic power, or is there another secret? Probably not for origin magic power, probably not. Wanda couldn't control the thoughts that emerged in her mind, and couldn't help shaking her head, not wanting to think about these issues anymore. At this time, the community apartment has appeared in the field of vision. The top floor is lit, the bathroom is lit. Hurry back and see if you don't know. Wanda had been looking around just now, but didn't find anyone coming back. If Sombra is really Li Zi, then I will definitely go back before him. Thinking. With complicated emotions, Wanda turned into a scarlet light and returned to the living room. The bright living room was empty, and the bathroom door was still closed. Did not hear the slightest sound of running water. Plum. Wanda called out softly. No one responded, only the beating sound of clock hands. For a moment, her heart couldn't help tightening, and she walked towards the bathroom door with frightened steps. Put your hand on the handle and try to pull it down. Click. The door is open, but there is still no response.